Chapter 157. Rumble. The underground karst cave could not withstand a single blow. Under the powerful impact, it instantly collapsed. Swoosh! A black shadow turned into a black shadow and rushed over from the karst cave in front. Before the collapsing boulders could get close to his body, they were shattered by the power that came out of his body. Rumble. The black shadow punched again at Muronyu fiercely. Muronyu looked solemn and slashed out with his sword again. However, the black silhouette was extremely powerful. Once again, it shattered Muronyu's sword ray with a single punch. At the same time, the black shadow had crossed the collapsed underground karst cave and rushed to Muronyu to attack him. At this moment, Muronyu saw the black shadow clearly. It was a black ape that was 3 meters tall. The ape's body emitted a black light. Its eyes were red, and its body was emitting a violent aura. It was very terrifying. When the ape attacked, Muronyu used the army formula and went behind the ape. When he passed by the ape, he gathered 100% of his strength in his left hand and punched the ape fiercely. Rumble. Muronyu felt as if he had hit a huge piece of divine iron. His fist hurt. The huge rebounding force sent Muronyu flying. Where did this ape come from? Muronyu was shocked. The ape was very powerful, and its body was as hard as divine iron. It was very terrifying. The ape was hit by Muronyu's fist due to its carelessness. Its body swayed, but it was not sent flying. However, even so, the ape seemed to be very angry. With a roar, the ape strode forward and rushed to Muronyu in a few steps. It slapped its palm, that was the size of a palm leaf fan, at Muronyu. "You're courting death." Smelling the ape's violent aura, Muronyu narrowed his eyes. A cold light flashed in the depths of his eyes. He poured his strength into the immortal sword in his hand. Then, he held the sword with both hands and slashed it fiercely with a shout. Rumble. The immortal sword and the ape's huge hand collided fiercely in the void. At this moment, Muronyu had activated the power of the immortal sword. The power of both sides exploded in the void. The terrifying impact instantly shattered the ground within a radius of dozens of miles. Even Zhao, Jiqing, and the others who were far away on the ground felt the ground tremble violently. Poof! The immortal sword brushed past the ape's palm. After a muffled sound, blood spurted out. At that moment, Muronyu watched as the ape's fan-sized palm was sliced off by his sword and sent flying into the distance. The ape let out a pained roar. At this moment, its aura became more violent. After roaring, the originally black power on the surface of its body was now faintly flickering with red light. The ape's eyes, which were already red, looked as if blood was oozing out. It was extremely shocking. With a slap, the ground within a radius of a few miles was directly smashed into pieces. The more violent the ape was, the more powerful it seemed. "Bastard, you're courting death." Muronyu roared angrily. It was bad enough that he was suddenly attacked by the beast, but the beast was still unwilling to let him go. At this moment, Muronyu's anger had been ignited. He already had murderous intent towards the ape. However, this was the ground after all, and he couldn't use his limbs. With a sway, Muronyu's body was wrapped in chaotic power. Then, he directly soared into the sky. Wherever his body passed, the ground exploded. In front of Muronyu, the hard ground couldn't stop Muronyu's speed. Roar, roar. Seeing that Muronyu seemed to be trying to escape, the ape was instantly furious. It roared continuously from behind and also soared into the sky, chasing after Muronyu. Boom! Zhao, Jiqing, and the rest were on the ground. They didn't know what happened to Muronyu below. All of a sudden, the ground not far in front of them exploded. At the same time, a phantom soared into the sky. "Muronyu!" someone exclaimed because they saw that the figure was Muronyu. After Muronyu rushed out of the ground, he didn't stop. Instead, he directly soared into the sky. Behind him, a black silhouette emitting an incomparably ruthless aura soared into the sky and chased after Muronyu. What's going on? The girls were shocked. Zhang Ao quickly held Muron. At this moment, Zhao Jiqing, who was worried about Murong Yu, said to Zhang Ao. Zhang Ao nodded. Just as he was about to soar into the sky, Murong Yu's voice sounded, Zhang Ao, protect everyone. I can deal with this beast myself. Hearing this, Zhang Ao stopped in his tracks. In the void, Murong Yu had stopped flying. The void was vast and boundless. It was perfect for him to use his limbs. Beast, I'd like to see what you're capable of. Murong Yu simply withdrew his immortal sword. With a low roar, he used the army formula and turned into a stream of light, rushing towards the ape. The ape was roaring at this moment. Looking at the human who cut off one of his hands, he was furious to the extreme. Seeing Murong Yu rushing over, he immediately rushed up and used both his hands and feet, trying to tear Murong Yu into pieces. However, when he was halfway there, Murong Yu, who was originally in front of him, suddenly disappeared, causing his fist to land on empty air. Bang! Murong Yu used the army formula and exerted the army formula to the limit of what he could do now. With a sway of his body, he appeared behind the ape. Thousand Army Elephant Fist. With a low roar, Murong Yu punched the ape's back hard. The black shadow of the dragon elephant appeared in front of Murong Yu, accompanied by the 100 coiled dragons above his head. It was a magnificent and majestic sight. The ape let out a roar, turned around abruptly, and slapped out. However, Murong Yu had disappeared again. When the ape was roaring angrily, Murong Yu's dark, godly demon Prajna had already hit its body hard. The dark, godly demon Prajna was the most powerful move in the dragon elephant Prajna technique. With a punch, the shadow of the godly demon followed. The terrifying power exploded. The ape let out a painful roar and was suddenly sent flying. However, Murong Yu's fist was also in pain. The ape's body was simply too strong. It was even stronger than his body. However, in addition to its strong body and powerful strength, the ape's brain was a little slow. Even its speed was far slower than Murong Yu's. It was because of this that Murong Yu could use the army formula to defeat the ape when his strength was not as good as his. Dragon Elephant Prajna Technique, Tiger Roaring Imperial Fist. Needless to say, the Dragon Elephant Prajna Technique was taught to Murong Yu by Hichu. As for the Tiger Roar Emperor Fist, it was a set of ordinary martial arts techniques in Murong's family. However, at this time, Murong Yu also used the Soaring Dragon Tiger Roar, and its power was amazing. With the help of the army formula, although the ape's attack was sharp, it could no longer touch Murong Yu. On the contrary, Murong Yu relied on the unparalleled speed of the army formula to bombard the ape until it was dizzy. If it weren't for its powerful physical body, it would have long been killed by Murong Yu. Awesome! As Murong Yu kicked the ape away, he couldn't help but yell in delight. It had been a long time since such an intense battle had taken place. All along, Murong Yu had not been facing existences that were much stronger than him. For those kinds of existences, Murong Yu was careful every time he fought, and he had to rely on other kind of treasures to get away. Or it was a battle where he was killed in an instant. He didn't feel anything about these two kinds of battles. As for an existence like the ape, its strength was much stronger than Yishiwen's. However, Yishiwen was able to completely dominate it. That was why Yishiwen was able to enjoy the fight. After a round of battle, Murong Yu felt good. However, the ape was getting angrier and angrier. Even the power of its whole body had turned red, and it was getting more and more violent. This situation was called berserk, and ordinary demonic beasts knew this kind of cultivation method. It was equivalent to some of the cultivation methods of human cultivators, such as the Sky Demon Disintegration Technique. However, no matter how berserk the ape was, its speed was still not as fast as Murong Yu. In the face of the unparalleled army formula, it was destined to be defeated by Murong Yu. It's time to end the battle. After the battle, Murong Yu had a deeper understanding of his strength. With a thought, Murong Yu stretched out his big hand. In the palm of his hand, a pocket-sized ancient cauldron was spinning. Yin-Yang Cauldron, kill it. Murong Yu shouted in a low voice and took out the Yin-Yang Cauldron. The Yin-Yang Cauldron expanded with the wind and quickly grew taller than the ape. Above the ape, it crushed the firmament and shattered the void as it ruthlessly pressed down on the ape. The ape roared and slapped the yin-yang cauldron, trying to send it flying. Bang! At this moment, the yin-yang cauldron trembled violently, and then endless yin-yang fire spewed out, instantly enveloping the ape. Morongyu looked at the yin-yang cauldron hopefully. If even the yin-yang fire couldn't destroy the ape, he could only take the girls and run as far as possible. Yin-yang fire burned the world. Although the ape's physical body was stronger than Murongyu's second-grade spiritual weapon, it was completely vulnerable in front of the yin-yang fire. Bang! When the yin-yang fire enveloped the ape's physical body, Murongyu saw the ferocious ape suddenly turn into a pile of powder and disappeared. It was refined by the yin-yang fire. He didn't even have time to scream before he was killed. This yin-yang fire is really... Murongyu was speechless. When he saw the terror of the yin-yang fire again, he felt more and more powerful. It was a pity that he couldn't completely control the yin-yang cauldron with his current strength. Otherwise, with the yin-yang cauldron in hand, he would be invincible in the world. Of course, this was only an ideal situation. Not to mention that Murongyu couldn't completely control the yin-yang cauldron now. Even if he could, a cultivator wouldn't be as stupid as the ape. Once the cultivator realized that something was wrong, he would have fled far away. How could he let Murongyu burn him? He reached out and called back the yin-yang cauldron. Then, his body swayed and disappeared in the void. When he reappeared, he was in front of the girls. Chapter 158. Seeing Murongyu come back, Zhao Jiqing and others quickly walked over and asked with concern, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." Murongyu shrugged and said casually. Although he was beaten by the ape during the process, the ape was burned by him in the end. What was important was not the process, but the result. "Where's the monster?" Yu Mengxing looked at Murongyu and asked. "It's dead," Murongyu said indifferently. Yu Mengxing curled her lips and looked at Murongyu in disbelief. This guy's realm was still in the fusion stage, but he was getting stronger and stronger. This was the feeling that Murongyu gave Yu Mengxing and everyone else. They couldn't understand why Murongyu's realm didn't change, but his strength was getting stronger day by day. "Don't look at me like that. I'm invincible." Murongyu smiled. Everyone was silent and didn't comment. In fact, thinking about it carefully, Murongyu was really an invincible existence since his debut. Whether it was Zhuang Ningguang in the transformation stage or other people, they couldn't do anything to Murongyu. Of course, Murongyu couldn't defeat them. It was just that Murongyu was only in the fusion stage, and even before that, he was only in the revolving stage. The gap between the realms was too big. This man is like a mystery. I can't see through him at all. The longer they were in contact with Murongyu, the more they couldn't see through Murongyu. Often when they thought they had seen through Murongyu, they suddenly found that this was just the tip of the iceberg of Murongyu. Well, there's a spiritual vein below, but I can't guarantee that there will be any monsters or the like below. If you're not afraid of danger, you can go down and have a look. While speaking, Murongyu had already rushed into the big hole that he and the ape had made. Spiritual vein. Although everyone had heard of spiritual veins, they had never seen one before. Therefore, when Murongyu said that there was a spiritual vein below, everyone began to ponder. Then, no one chose to stay behind. All of them entered the underground cave. The underground cave was like a maze, tangled and complicated. Murongyu led the group forward, and after walking for half a day, they still did not come across the so-called spiritual vein. However, as they continued to go deeper, the spirit chi also became denser. At this moment, the spiritual chi was so dense that it had liquefied and turned into mist that floated between heaven and earth. The grade of the spirit vein is definitely not low. Hichu, who was in the Hichu Luoshu world, couldn't help but say, "Do you think there will be any other demon beasts inside?" Murongyu asked. "There shouldn't be any demonic beasts. If I'm not wrong, the ape you killed before should be a demonic beast that cultivates near the spirit vein. With its strength and character, it shouldn't be able to tolerate a second demonic beast cultivating." Murongyu nodded. That ape was not only violent, but also irritable and petty. Murong-yu had just arrived at the underground cave and had already made its move to kill Murong-yu. Rumble. Not long after, the sound of water flowing like a waterfall could be heard from afar. It was earth-shattering and powerful. Could it be that there's an underground river in front of us? Everyone's face flashed with a hint of surprise. The sound became louder and louder, and the mist condensed by the spirit weapons became denser. If they cultivated in such an environment, they would be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort. However, everyone's footsteps did not stop. On the contrary, they sped up. Not long after, the front suddenly opened up. This was a vast space, and Murong-yu and the rest were on top of a cliff. Below the cliff, the sound of a rushing river could be heard. It was as if thousands of soldiers and horses were flowing endlessly, and the momentum was extremely terrifying. This was an incomparably huge underground river. No one knew where it came from, and no one knew where it was flowing to. At a glance, this river was at least dozens of miles wide. There was no source and no end. A river that was dozens of miles wide. Even the largest river in the world of Huaxia was not as wide as this. It no longer looked like a river, but more like a sea. The huge underground river rushed out, and the rapid flow of water was extremely large. On the shore, there were constantly splashes of water. The mist-like spirit chi that was condensed in the void came from this underground river. Is this a spirit vein? Looking at the vast river below, everyone was dumbfounded. Spirit vein. Murong-yu's heart was incomparably excited. He'd finally found another spirit vein that was of decent quality. At first glance, he already knew that this underground river was actually a spirit vein. Although this spirit vein was incomparable to the chaos spirit vein in the depths of the Demon Mountain, chaos spirit veins were different from ordinary spirit veins. The spirit vein that Murong-yu saw that day was definitely of a much higher grade than this spirit vein. However, Murong-yu did not have the ability to take the chaos spirit vein away. This is a grade 9 spirit vein. Hichu, who was in Hichu Luo Shu, was also surprised. He did not expect that Murong-yu would come across a grade 9 spirit vein. His luck was extraordinarily good. A grade 9 spirit vein and a grade 1 spirit vein were both spirit veins. However, there was no comparison between a grade 1 spirit vein and a grade 9 spirit vein. For example, the grade 1 spirit vein that Murong-yu found in the historical remains was nothing compared to this grade 9 spirit vein. Grade 9 spirit vein. Murong-yu became even more excited. However, after his excitement, his face darkened. The higher the grade of the spirit vein, the harder it was to subdue it. At the very least, Murong-yu could not subdue this spirit vein in front of him. Hichu, can you subdue this grade 9 spirit vein? Murong-yu asked hurriedly. No. Hichu's answer was very straightforward, but it made Murong-yu's heart sink. You really can't? Murong-yu's face darkened. Based on my current strength, I really can't seal this spirit vein. Looking at the grade 9 spirit vein in front of him, which was as vast as a river, Murong-yu's face was terrifyingly gloomy. It was as if he had entered a treasure mountain full of treasures, but was told that he could only look and could not take any treasures away. His mood was extremely bad. A grade 9 spirit vein. Even if it was just a grade 9 spirit vein, it was a priceless treasure. Murong-yu was even certain that in the current cultivation world, there was absolutely no force that could possess a grade 9 spirit vein, not even a grade 8 spirit vein. Can't we think a way to seal it? Murong-yu was really unwilling to give up. If he had found a spirit vein that he could not subdue outside, he would not be so unwilling and depressed. Outside, even if he could not subdue it now, there would always be a chance in the future. However, this was the extreme heaven realm. After he left this time, he would have to wait for 10 years before he could enter again. However, would Murong-yu still be able to enter after 10 years? With his cultivation speed, it was really hard to say. How good would it be if we could subdue this spirit vein? Everyone was chattering as they looked at the spirit vein. This is a grade 9 spirit vein. Even a half-immortal cultivator would not be able to subdue it. Morong said lightly. A grade 9 spirit vein? That's really a pity. All the girls felt that it was a pity, because they could not subdue it, and the experts outside could not enter the extreme heaven realm. In other words, this grade 9 spirit vein could only exist here forever. That might not be true for me. Although I can't subdue it now, I have a way to let you enter the extreme heaven realm at any time. At this moment, Hichu suddenly said, Really? Morong was immediately overjoyed. What method do you have? Teleportation array. With infinite regret, Morong led everyone out of the underground karst cave and returned to the surface. At this time, the day when the extreme heaven realm would close was getting closer and closer. Finally, after a discussion, everyone decided not to go deeper and prepare to leave. However, before leaving, according to Morong request, they would stay here for half a month. According to him, since they had found such a grade 9 spirit vein, it would be a pity if they just left. Why not cultivate here for a while before leaving? In fact, cultivating near the grade 9 spirit vein was countless times more effective than swallowing the energy recovery pill directly. In half a month, relying on the rich spiritual energy of heaven and earth, the girl's cultivation became more and more solid. However, during this process, Morong would often find excuses to disappear. He was so mysterious that no one knew what he was up to. Boom! Zhao Jiqing's body emitted a white light, and an aura that was several times stronger than before was emitted from her body. Jiqing has broken through to the heart-stirring stage. Seeing Zhao Jiqing break through to the heart-stirring stage, Yu Mengqing, who was guarding beside her, said in surprise. Jiqing broke through to the heart-stirring stage again? Morong suddenly appeared beside her and looked at Zhao Jiqing, who was still cultivating and consolidating her heart-stirring stage, with a face full of surprise. After the surprise, Morong felt a little embarrassed. Zhao Jiqing's breakthrough speed was really indescribable. However, Morong was also happy for her despite his embarrassment. Except for Zhao Jiqing, the others more or less had some gains, especially those who had broken through after swallowing the energy breakthrough pill. At this time, after using the spiritual energy of the grade 9 spirit vein to cultivate for half a month, they had firmly consolidated their heart-stirring stage. And the biggest gain was undoubtedly Zhang Ao. At this time, his strength was firmly at the peak of the form synthesis stage, and he was only one step away from the crossing calamity stage. However, it seemed that it was only one step, but it was still unknown when he would be able to enter the crossing calamity stage. Hey, girl, your aura seems to be stronger. What's wrong? Did you break through too? Morong withdrew his gaze from Zhao Jiqing and found that Yu Mengqing seemed to be stronger than before. Hearing Morong words, Yu Mengqing couldn't help but curl her lips and snort coldly. Then she raised her proud little head and said with a smug face, I am now a master of the severed soul stage. Morong looked at her with a surprised look on his face. You also broke through? Have you reached the severed soul stage? Of course. Yu Mengqing was very proud. She raised her little head high, and her face was full of joy. It's just the severed soul stage. What's there to be proud of? Seeing Yu Mengqing's smug look, Morong couldn't help but say. Yu Mengqing suddenly felt discouraged. Yes, it's just the severed soul stage, far inferior to Zhang Ao, who was at the peak of the form synthesis stage. She was still not Morong's opponent. Chapter 159. After all, Morong's strength was obvious to all. However, what puzzled Yu Mengqing and the others was that since Morong had an endless supply of realm-breaking pills, why didn't he swallow them himself? If Morong ate the realm-breaking pills, wouldn't he have already reached the peak of the combination stage? After dealing with Yu Mengqing, Morong looked at the other cultivators. When he saw that their strength had increased, he couldn't help but nod slightly. You guys continue, I'll go inside and take a look. Morong instructed everyone, then rushed towards a grade 9 spirit vein. Everyone was not surprised, because in the past half a month, Murong Yu had been mysteriously appearing in the depths of the underground cave. After going a certain distance, Murong Yu's body shook and disappeared into thin air. When he reappeared, he was already in the Hichu Luoshu world, appearing beside Hichu. At this time, Hichu was busy, and he was too lazy to pay attention to Murong Yu's appearance. "Hichu, how is it?" Murong Yu walked up, rubbed his hands, and asked with a hopeful face. Hichu didn't speak, but he was still busy. After a long time, he finally stopped. Then he came to Murong Yu's side, clapped his hands, and said, "It's done. So this is the mysterious array formation? It can let me travel between the extreme heaven realm and the cultivation world at any time." Murong Yu looked at the altar-like thing in front of him with a hesitant face. "Of course not," Hichu said straightforwardly. Murong Yu staggered, then looked at Hichu with a resentful face. "Didn't you say that you have a way to let me enter and exit the extreme heaven realm at any time?" "Of course I said that. But if you want to enter and exit the extreme heaven realm at any time, just relying on this altar is not enough." At this point, Hichu added in his heart, "In fact, I'm not sure whether it will work or not." "Then what else do you need?" "The day when the extreme heaven realm closes is not far away." Murong Yu was a little anxious. "Don't worry, this altar has been completed. You just need to set up an array outside." "What's going on?" Murong Yu asked suspiciously. Hichu pondered for a moment, as if he was organizing his words. After a long time, he finally said, "Actually, I'll tell you this. These are equivalent to some teleportation arrays. Through this altar, you can establish a connection with the array formations scattered all over the place. Then, through the connection between the two altars, you can directly teleport. This altar in the Hichu Luoshu world is equivalent to a bridge to all the teleport arrays. Through this altar, you can be teleport to any place where you've set up your teleport to the teleport." At this point, Hichu added in his heart, "Of course, this is only my idea. Whether it will work or not, it still needs to be tested." Murong Yu's eyes suddenly lit up, but then he looked at Hichu with a hesitant expression. "What you said is incredible. Will it work or not? Also, you're only doing this now? Why didn't you do it before? If you set up a teleportation array in the depths of the Demon Mountain, wouldn't it be much easier for us to go in?" Hichu smiled embarrassedly and said in his heart, "I just finished the idea recently. It was only a preliminary idea when I was in the Demon Mountain." Of course, Hichu did not say this to Murong Yu. Otherwise, Murong Yu would definitely go crazy. With a flash, Murong Yu and Hichu left the Hichu Luoshu world and appeared next to the rank 9 spirit vein. "This array must be safe. We must ensure that it won't be destroyed. Let's set it up underground." Thus, Murong Yu and Hichu went dozens of miles deep into the underground cave. There, Murong Yu dug a stone room, and Hichu set up a seemingly simple array in the secret room. Yes, this array was quite simple. It was set up in just a few breaths. "Okay, let's try it." After setting up the teleportation array, Hichu and Murong Yu could not wait to enter the Hichu Luoshu world and appeared near the altar. I can really feel the existence of that array. Outside the altar, Murong Yu and Hichu looked at each other, and then their faces were full of excitement. With a flash, Murong Yu stepped into the altar. After entering the altar, Murong Yu's mind immediately felt the teleportation array under the rank 9 spirit vein. "Teleport," Murong Yu said in his heart, and then he suddenly felt a pulling force on his body. The scene in front of him changed, and in the next moment, he found himself in the stone room under the rank 9 spirit vein. It can really be teleported, yeah. It's a success. The first to exclaim was not Murong Yu, but Hichu. It can really be teleported? When Murong Yu heard this, he suddenly had a black line on his face. He looked at Hichu with a gloomy face, his eyes flashing, and his face full of evil intentions. "Hichu, what you mean is that it hasn't been successful before? It hasn't been teleported before?" As soon as Hichu said this, he regretted it, but since Murong Yu had already seen through it, he didn't care anymore. So, he said with a calm face, I've been thinking about this array for countless years. When I was with your teacher, I had already started thinking about it. However, I just figured it out recently. Murongyu's face was full of black lines. It turned out that before this so-called teleportation array was just an idea. Fortunately, it was successful now, otherwise he would definitely go crazy. Since it's successful now, I won't pursue it, Murongyu said with a gloomy face. In fact, he was already overjoyed. The river diagram's formation was truly miraculous and invincible. Imagine, as long as he went to a place in the future, he could casually set up a teleportation array there. In the future, he could go whenever he wanted, and no one could stop him, especially in secret realms like the extreme celestial realm, which had restrictions on entry and exit. Others could only enter once every 10 years, and there was a limit to their strength. But he could come in whenever he wanted, and there were no restrictions. As long as he could enter and exit at any time, then wouldn't the extreme celestial realm's spiritual veins, ruins, spiritual grasses, spiritual medicines, and the like be his? At this moment, Murongyu happily discovered that this extreme celestial realm, which had many restrictions on cultivators, had become his back garden from the moment Hichu's teleportation array was successfully set up. In the future, I will come to the extreme celestial realm to relax and look for ruins, spiritual veins, and the like. Thinking of this, Murongyu finally couldn't help but laugh. By the way, Hichu, I saw that the array you set up was so simple. Then can you set up some teleportation arrays in advance, and then seal them? In this way, no matter where I go, I can casually cast out the array, and there will be no need to set it up temporarily. Murongyu suddenly had this idea in his heart. Although setting up the array was very simple, but no matter how simple the array was, it still needed time to set it up. And if the array was sealed, then when the time came, it would just be a casual flick, and the array would appear at the place Murongyu wanted without anyone noticing. Moreover, if it was done this way, Murongyu didn't need to personally go to the destination. Imagine, he only needed to give the sealing array to his subordinates and let them place it somewhere. Then he only needed to enter the Hichu Luoshu world, and through the altar's teleportation, he would appear at the destination he wanted to go to without anyone noticing. Not only would it be without anyone noticing, but it would also save time and effort. Good idea. I will go back and do it right away. Hichu roared excitedly. Then his figure flashed and disappeared on the spot. Murongyu laughed wildly in the stone room for a long time, then left the stone room and slowly walked in the direction of the girls. Even after returning to the group, the smile on his face didn't fade away. After Murongyu returned, Yu Mengxing quietly approached and asked in a low voice, "Big gangster, are you upset?" Murongyu's wild laughter just now spread far and wide, and everyone heard it. However, they all thought that Murongyu was upset because he couldn't take the grade 9 spirit vein and couldn't take it away. Upset? Hearing that, the smile on Murongyu's face froze instantly. Then he looked at Yu Mengxing in surprise, and his gaze swept across everyone's faces. Then he said, "Why do you say that? Why would I be upset?" Murongyu really didn't understand why everyone had such a reaction. However, after everyone explained the matter, Murongyu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He was indeed upset, but it wasn't because he couldn't take the grade 9 spirit vein, but because he was excited because he could enter the extreme celestial state at any time in the future. Of course, he wouldn't tell the girls now. Sometimes, it was better not to tell some secrets, even to the people closest to you. Huh. Murongyu laughed and said, "It's nothing, I just laughed a little." Then, he glanced at everyone and saw that Zhao Jiqing had finally consolidated her state and stood up. Therefore, he asked, "Okay, can we go now?" Hearing that, everyone woke up from their cultivation state and followed Murongyu reluctantly out of the underground car's cave. They were really reluctant to leave. Cultivating under the grade 9 spirit vein was really twice the result with half the effort. It was also very possible to cultivate to the transformation stage. Some people even had the thought of staying behind. However, after thinking about it, it wasn't practical. With their current strength, they couldn't deal with the dangerous depths of the extreme celestial state at all. They couldn't leave this place alone. Therefore, no matter how reluctant they were, they still left. During this process, Hichu in the Hichu Luoshu world had already completed the formation. Murongyu used his divine thought to take a look and found that these formations had been compressed by Hichu into an inexplicable metal the size of a soybean. On the way, Murongyu randomly threw down a few sealed formations. There was no difference with the formation underground of the Grade 9 Spirit Vein. They could sense it through the altar in the Hichu Luoshu world. Since they could sense it, it meant that they could teleport. It was difficult to enter, but easy to leave. Not long after, Murongyu and the others left the forest and appeared in the outer area of the extreme celestial realm. At this time, it was less than half a month before the extreme celestial realm closed. After entering the outer area of the extreme celestial realm, they began to encounter cultivators from other sections. Of course, these cultivators were not in the eyes of Murongyu and the others at all. Chapter 160. Not to mention that Murongyu was extremely powerful, even Zhang Ao, who was at the peak of the form synthesis stage. This guy was very cold-blooded and ruthless. Once he found out that someone dared to have designs on them, he would cold-bloodedly kill them. Even the cultivators at the peak of the out-of-body stage were no match for Zhang Ao. Therefore, during this process, Murongyu seemed to be very relaxed, because he didn't have to continue fighting and killing. He just hung out with Zhao Jiqing, Yu Mengqing, and the other girls, chatting and laughing. It was very comfortable. Bang! A ball of blood exploded in the void, and the ground was full of corpses and broken limbs. In the void, Zhang Ao, who was full of killing intent, stood with a sword in his hand. This was the peak time for the various sects to return. Countless disciples emerged from all over the place and flew towards the exit of the extreme celestial realm in a mighty manner. Zhang Ao, Murongyu suddenly shouted. Hearing this, Zhang Ao quickly flew in front of Murongyu and bowed his head respectfully. Go to the exit of the extreme heaven realm as fast as you can. If you see anyone from Zhushenzong, Yuan Su sect, and Limitless Sword sect, kill them all. Don't let a single one of them leave the extreme heaven realm. Murongyu narrowed his eyes slightly, and a cold light flashed. Yes, leader. Zhang Ao accepted the order and immediately flew towards the exit of the extreme heaven realm in pain. Remember, your safety first, Murongyu shouted. Then he still felt a little worried, so he threw the first great immortal sword that he took from Zhushenzong's disciple to Zhang Ao. Hearing Murongyu's words of concern and seeing Murongyu give the immortal sword to him, Zhang Ao was very excited. He was so excited that his eyes turned red. Leader, don't worry. I will definitely complete the mission. If it was before entering the extreme heaven realm, the girls might feel that Murongyu's decision was too cruel and cruel. However, after a year of experience in the extreme heaven realm, they had seen too much killing and were silently used to this kind of bloodshed and cruelty, especially the girls from the Xianyue sect. More than 500 of them entered the extreme heaven realm, and now there were less than 50 of them. After experiencing this kind of thing many times, their thoughts gradually changed. Moreover, Murongyu's disciples from Zhushenzong and Yuan Su sect were chasing after Murongyu outside the extreme heaven realm. Murongyu wanted to kill Murongyu. However, the people from the Mystic Moon sect felt that it was a pity that Murongyu didn't wipe out the Purple Flame sect, Defecta sect, and the other two sections. However, they also understood Murongyu's actions. Murongyu didn't have much of a relationship with the Profound Moon sect. Even Sex was only friends with them. There is no need to start a feud with these three sects just to avenge the disciples of the Mystic Moon sect. In fact, the enmity between Murongyu and these sects had long been formed. The reason why Murongyu didn't ask Zhang Ao to kill these three sects was because he was worried that Zhang Ao wouldn't be able to handle it. After all, although Zhang Ao was at the body fusion stage, he had too little experience in fighting enemies and was not used to his own strength. The most important thing now was to kill all the people from Zushinzong and the other two sections. After crossing a mountain, a group of people walked over from the other side. Taking a closer look, Murong secretly laughed in his heart. Enemies really don't meet. With a smile on his face, Murong turned to look at Yu Mengqing. At this moment, Yu Mengqing was already gnashing her teeth. There was no other reason because this group of people were their old friends, like Tianji Sect, Purple Flame Sect, and Divine Talisman Sect. It was the three sects that had slaughtered almost all the people from the Mystic Moon Sect outside the ruins. When Murong and the rest saw the people from the three sects, they also saw Murong and the rest. As a result, whoosh, immediately, the people from the three sects surrounded Murong and the rest without any orders. It's the people from the Mystic Moon Sect. Hand over the things in the ruins. Kill them all. We'll find them from their corpses. The people from the three sects shouted angrily and surrounded them. Seeing this, the people from the Mystic Moon Sect and even the Green Xian Peak gnashed their teeth in hatred. The people from the three great sects were too shameless. They were simply shameless to the extreme. Sister Jiqing, lend me your immortal sword. Yu Mengqing glared at the people from the three sects, then turned to ask Zhao Jiqing for her immortal sword. Zhao Jiqing was also very straightforward. Without saying anything, she directly lent her immortal sword to Yu Mengqing. Senior sister, let's kill this group of shameless people and avenge our sisters. Yu Mengqing took the immortal sword and said to Yang Man and the others. Speaking of which, in a year in the extreme heaven realm, even cultivating near the 9th grade spirit vein for half a month, Yang Man, Pei Yu, and Sima Ryu did not break through. However, on the way, they all broke through to the Severed Soul stage. In other words, the Mystic Moon Sect now had 4 Severed Soul stage experts. Although there were only 4 people, it was enough to deal with the disciples of the 3 sections. Yang Man and the other 2 did not hesitate and immediately rose into the air, killing the people from the 3 sects with murderous intent. Big gangster, please protect them. When leaving, Yu Mengqing said. Murong nodded. Although the girls' cultivation had increased, they were not a match for the people from the 3 sects because the 3 sects still had thousands of people. It seemed that after a few months, the people from the 3 sects also encountered some danger and many people died. However, they still outnumbered Murong by a lot. If they rushed up, they would be directly killed by the people from the 3 sections. You are really courting death. When Yu Mengqing and the others were halfway there, a cold laugh rang out from the 3 sections. Then a huge hand slapped out fiercely. The hand expanded rapidly in the air and enveloped Yu Mengqing and the others, suppressing them directly. The momentum was astonishing and majestic, containing an incomparably powerful aura. It was on par with Yu Mengqing and the others. It was also a Severed Soul stage expert. Yu Mengqing snorted coldly and slashed out with her sword. Boom! After a loud noise, the big hand in the void had been shattered by Yu Mengqing's sword. Yu Mengqing's figure flickered, and she turned into a stream of light and blasted into the crowd. Severed Soul stage. It seemed that at this time, Yu Mengqing and the others clearly saw the cultivation level of the people from the 3 sections. Die for me! Yu Mengqing shouted coldly and slashed out with her sword. Chi! A huge sword light gushed out from the immortal sword and slashed fiercely at the Severed Soul stage expert who spoke. Ah! 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 After a burst of screams, where the sword light passed, the experts below the Severed Soul stage didn't even have the chance to dodge and were directly cut into pieces by the sword light. With a slash of the sword, at least dozens of disciples were killed. Seeing how terrifying Yu Mengqing was, the surrounding disciples of the 3 sects immediately fled in all directions. At this time, the Severed Soul stage expert of the Divine Talisman sect soared into the sky and fought with Yu Mengqing. On the other side, Yang Man and the other 2 also transformed into 3 killing gods. Although they didn't have immortal swords in their hands, the strength of the severed soul stage experts was much stronger than the people from the three sections. With a palm strike, the sky and earth split, enveloping this void and directly killing dozens of people. A few months ago, the disciples of the three sects killed everyone from the Mystic Moon sect without being able to fight back. Almost all of them were killed. Only 3 months later, Young Man and the other two killed them as effortlessly as killing chickens. This was simply a massacre. Among the three sects, except for the severed soul stage expert who was stopped by Yu Mengxing, the remaining strongest was only at the out-of-body stage. Although the out-of-body stage and the severed soul stage were only one stage apart. But the difference in strength was like heaven and earth. Young Man, Pei Peiyu, and Sima Ryu killed almost all the disciples of the Mystic Moon sect because of anger, so they didn't show any mercy. Even the out-of-body stage cultivators were directly killed by them. Not long after, the 1,000 or so disciples of the three sects were all killed by the three of them. Just as they killed all these people, Yu Mengxing also raised her sword and killed the cultivator from the Divine Talisman sect who had advanced to the Severed Soul stage. So far, the thousands of disciples from the Divine Talisman sect, Purple Flame sect, and Tianji sect who had entered the Extreme Heaven Realm had all been killed. No one had been able to leave the Extreme Heaven Realm alive. Of course, only a portion of them were killed by Murong and the others. In this year, a portion of the disciples of the three sects had died in battles with other sects or with other demonic beasts. All of them had died. After killing all these people, Yu Mengxing and the others returned. At this moment, they heaved a sigh of relief. All along, they had watched hundreds of their fellow disciples being killed. Every time they thought of this matter, their hearts would be heavy. Now that they had killed all these people, they could truly relax. This was because they had already avenged their fellow disciples who had died. At the same time, Zhang Ao was already standing proudly in front of the exit of the Extreme Heaven Realm with his sword in hand. The ground in front of him was littered with corpses and broken limbs. There were disciples of Zhushenzong, Yuan Su sect, and Limitless Sword sect, as well as disciples of other sections. Of course, Zhang Ao's target was the disciples of these three sections. As for the disciples of other sects, because they couldn't stand Zhang Ao, they forcefully stood up and were killed by Zhang Ao in the end. Except for the people of Zhushenzong, Yuan Su sect, and Limitless Sword sect, the rest can leave. Zhang Ao held his sword with both hands and floated in the air. His cold voice spread far and wide. What's going on? What is this person's background? It is said that even a severed soul stage expert was killed by his sword. In front of the Extreme Heaven Realm's exit, there were many people surrounding it. These people were all attracted by Zhang Ao. One was curious about why Zhang Ao wanted to kill Zhushenzong and the other two sections. The other was shocked by Zhang Ao's identity and terrifying strength. Many people from the three great sects have already died under his sword. TSK. Each of the three sects had a severed soul stage expert. It's just that the three of them were killed by this person with a single sword. That's really powerful. Someone said with a shocked face, as if he had witnessed everything that had just happened. 3 severed soul stage experts were killed? Then isn't this person's strength at least at the peak of the severed soul stage or the unity stage? Chapter 161. Form synthesis stage. Someone sneered. You don't know, but he just said that he is already at the peak of form synthesis stage. Let me ask you, with such a strong cultivator guarding here, how can the people of the 3 sects leave? Do you know why he is targeting the 3 sects? Someone asked. You can ask him. Hey, isn't that person Murong Yu's follower? Someone suddenly exclaimed. After Murong Yu sees Zhushenzong's immortal sword, he was recognized, because he was not wearing a mask at that time. Then, he and Zhao Jiqing were watched by many people for a long time, until they entered the depths of the Extreme Heaven Realm, and finally got rid of those people's tracking. And Zhang Ao has always been by Murong Yu's side, so naturally people remembered him. How is that possible? That guy is only at the revolving reflection stage, but this is a cultivator at the peak of form synthesis stage. only one step away from the crossing tribulation stage. Someone denied Zhang Ao's identity with a very certain tone. Although I don't know how his cultivation became so strong. I'm sure he is Murong Yu's follower. Otherwise, why would he want to kill Zhushenzong and Yuan Su sect's people for no reason? But what's going on with Limitless Sword sect? Zhushenzong and Yuan Su sect are chasing Murong Yu, so he wants revenge. But Limitless Sword sect and Murong Yu have no enmity, right? Someone asked puzzledly. Who cares about his relationship? Just watch the show here. As the day of the Extreme Heaven Realm's closing approached, more and more people gathered at the entrance of the Extreme Heaven Realm. After knowing about Zhang Ao's matter, most people chose to watch here and did not leave immediately. At this time, outside the Extreme Heaven Realm, many sects had already gathered in the square. These few days, the Extreme Heaven Realm would close, and it was also the day of their harvest. Usually, at this time, many people would have come out of the Extreme Heaven Realm. However, this year seemed a bit strange because only a few people came out. Did something happen in the Extreme Heaven Realm this year? Were those people all wiped out? Someone guessed. However, very quickly, those disciples who left early told the story of Zhang Ao blocking the exit. Zhushenzong, Yuan Su sect, and Limitless Sword sect were all furious. As for the other sects, they were secretly laughing. This was especially true for the other sects who were also part of the top 10 sections. They were laughing at him to the very end. If the rumors were correct, Zhang Ao should be a body integration stage cultivator. At the body integration stage, even if everyone in the Extreme Heavenly Realm worked together, they still wouldn't be a match for Zhang Ao. In other words, no one from the three great sects would be able to come out alive. I heard that all of you are stuck inside. The elders of the 10 great sects gathered together, chatting and laughing with each other. Only Zhushenzong, Yuan Su sect, and Limitless Sword sect had ugly expressions on their faces. At this moment, an elder from the Purple Flame sect looked at his people and said, "The three great sects, one of the 10 great sects, were all killed by an unknown person." TSK, TSK. This matter really gives you guys face, said an old man. He was an expert from the Divine Talisman sect. Maybe they worked together to kill that Zhang Ao. A middle-aged man said. This person was an elder from the Tianji sect. The faces of the elders from the Void Sky sect and the other 2 sects darkened when they heard the 3 of them echoing each other. Maybe your people have already been wiped out. An elder from the Limitless Sword sect said with a darkened face. Everyone laughed. However, the 3 great sects of the Limitless Sword sect were very angry. If it wasn't for the fact that they couldn't enter the Extreme Heaven Realm, they would have already rushed in and started a massacre. Pooh! A sword beam shot up into the sky, tearing the void apart and shattering the sky. A blood-curdling scream came from afar. Everyone looked over and saw a bloody mist erupting in the distance. And in front of the blood fog, there was a cultivator with a shocked face looking at Zhang Ao with a terrified expression. You can leave now. I only killed the people from the 3 great sections. Zhang Ao said indifferently. It turned out that there was a person from the Yuan Su sect who wanted to leave in the crowd. However, he was discovered by Zhang Ao and was killed. Unrelated people, leave immediately. Otherwise, you can stay here forever for the next 10 years. Zhang Ao suddenly became impatient. These people were blocking his view. The people from the 3 great sects were watching from afar and didn't come closer. Boom! As he spoke, Zhang Ao released the aura of a cultivator at the peak of the form synthesis stage. The aura was like a stormy sea with Zhang Ao as the center. It instantly spread out in all directions. The terrifying aura covered a radius of a few hundred miles and suppressed everything. Plop, plop, plop. The aura was as vast as the sea. Immediately, the surrounding people felt that they couldn't breathe properly. A feeling of death rose from the bottom of their hearts. Many people were even forced to kneel on the ground. Fortunately, although Zhang Ao released his aura, it didn't contain any killing intent. Otherwise, these people would have been killed by him directly. Bang, bang, bang. However, The cultivators from the three great sects weren't so lucky. As long as Zhang Ao found out that they were disciples of the three great sects, he would release a powerful killing intent and kill them directly. It seems like he's serious. After feeling Zhang Ao's terrifying aura, most people were shocked. Thus, one figure after another soared into the air and rushed toward the exit. Zhang Ao's divine thought had already covered the void in front of the exit. As long as he found the disciples of the three great sects, he would kill them directly. Under Zhang Ao's thunderous means, the area around the exit of the extreme heaven realm was quickly cleared. The unrelated people had all left because there was only one day left before the extreme heaven realm closed. You guys leave first. When they were still some distance away from the exit of the extreme heaven realm, Murong separated from Zhao Jiqing, Yu Mengqing, and the others. At the same time, Murong gave each of them a few jade slips. You must leave as soon as possible. After a few words of advice, Zhao Jiqing and Yu Mengqing left the extreme heaven realm. At this time, Murong leisurely appeared at the exit of the extreme heaven realm and finally sat there cross-legged. He knew that many people from the three great sects were still hiding inside and hadn't come out. He was going to wait. He was going to wait until the very last moment. In addition to killing the disciples of the three great sects, he had also prepared a big gift. A big gift for many sects in the cultivation world. There's only one day left. Will Murong not come out? His sect's disciples, Murong people, were blocking the exit. And Murong even had an immortal weapon. New grudges and old grudges, as well as the temptation of an immortal weapon, caused the three great sects, and even the people from other sects, to not leave. At this time, the elders of the Purple Flame sect, Tianji sect, and Divine Talisman sect all had gloomy expressions, because none of the people from the three great sects had come out. Murong was blocking the cultivators of the three great sects at the exit of the extreme heaven realm. Wouldn't the three great sects, and even more sects, be planning to block and kill Murong at the exit of the extreme heaven realm? News of Murong blocking Zhushenzong and the disappearance of the three great sects had already spread, and the news of him having an immortal weapon had also spread. The various sects, especially the ones like Zhushenzong, already hated Murong to the core. After all, Murong's immortal sword was taken from their hands. Each of the sects had already made plans to ambush outside the extreme heaven realm. As long as Murong appeared, they would immediately kill Murong. Killing him was one reason, but seizing the immortal sword and other things in his hands was the main point. After all, Murong was able to raise Zhang Ao, a revolving reflection cultivator, to the body fusion stage, so he definitely had some treasures on him. If they could get Murong's treasures, then they would be able to raise the strength of their sect disciples by a large amount. At that time, it would also be very possible for them to become the #1 sect in the cultivation world. How could their plans be hidden from Murong? In fact, before Murong entered the extreme heaven realm, he had already considered this situation, and he had also prepared a big gift for these cultivators who were planning to ambush him. I originally didn't plan to use the realm-breaking pill, but my current strength is still too weak. Murong took out a realm-breaking pill and said with a sigh, Zhang Ao, you stay here and protect me. From now on, no one can leave the extreme heaven realm. Murong ordered. Those who wanted to leave had already left. At this time, those who hadn't left should be the disciples of the extreme heaven realm. Even if they weren't, then I'm sorry, who told you to be so late? Looking at the realm-breaking pill in his hand, Murong hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he swallowed it into his stomach. Then, he sat on the ground and began to break through. That day in the Hichu, Luoshu world, Murong broke through to the peak of the fusion stage because of the primal chaos celestial record. At the peak of the fusion stage, Murong not only had the power of 100 heavenly lions, but his lifespan had also reached a terrifying 50,000 years. In the cultivation world, a fusion stage cultivator only had a lifespan of 3,000 years at most. However, Murong Yu's lifespan had reached a terrifying 50,000 years, which was equivalent to an ordinary fusion stage cultivator. Of course, Murong Yu's terrifying lifespan was inseparable from his primal chaos, celestial record physique, or it was also related to the army character formula. After all, in addition to the unparalleled speed in the world, the army character formula also had the function of increasing lifespan. At that time, after Murong Yu had transcended the tribulation and absorbed the power of the tribulation thunder, his physical body had reached the level of a third-grade spiritual weapon. It could be said that it was very terrifying. However, at this time, Murong Yu still felt that he was too weak. So what if he had the power of 100 heavenly lions? He was still not an expert of the spirit severing stage. Even if he had a body of a third-grade spiritual weapon, he couldn't withstand the bombardment of an expert. After all, Murong Yu's opponents were not weak, but all of them were experts. They had always been experts of the transformation stage, half-immortal level, and so on. If it weren't for the many treasures on him, even 100 Murong Yu would have been killed. Boom! As soon as the realm-breaking pill entered his mouth, it immediately turned into an inexplicable force that surged into Murong Yu's limbs and bones. This force was very strange, different from the various kinds of spiritual energy, such as the energy recovery pill. The power of the realm-breaking pill did not increase Murong Yu's strength. Chapter 162. Although Murong Yu felt the power of the realm-breaking pill, he couldn't see it at all. It was as if it was invisible. Suddenly, Murong Yu's body shook. A loud sound came from his body. Boom! Like a stormy sea, an extremely terrifying aura burst out from his body. Rumble. The void trembled, and 100 extremely condensed shadows of the Pan-Chi appeared above Murong Yu's head. And this was not the final number of the Pan-Chi shadows. 101, 102. The Pan-Chi shadows kept appearing above Murong Yu's head. They kept roaring, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. It was extremely terrifying. As the number of Pan-Chi shadows kept increasing, Murong Yu's cultivation level barrier was also pierced through like a layer of window paper. Heartbeat stage. A small mountain of energy recovery pills appeared beside Murong Yu out of thin air, and then began to burn directly. Like a torrent of spiritual chi, it poured into Murong Yu's body and quickly strengthened his strength. The realm-breaking pill seemed to not only help Murong Yu to break through to the heartbeat stage, but also pushed Murong Yu's cultivation level to the peak of the heartbeat stage under the effect of sufficient spiritual chi. In the heartbeat stage, after burning hundreds of millions of pills, Murong Yu had consolidated and stabilized his cultivation level in just half a day. At this time, 150 extremely condensed shadows of the Pan-Chi in Pan-Chi were sitting cross-legged above Murong Yu's head. They roared in a low voice and made waves of dragon roars that shook the sky. The power of 150 Pan-Chi. An ordinary cultivator at the peak of the heartbeat stage only had the power of 60 Pan-Chi at most. Most people only had the power of 50 Pan-Chi. Murong Yu was almost 3 times the power of an ordinary cultivator at the same stage. It was really shocking. Zhang Ao, who'd been guarding Murong Yu for the past half a day, was also dumbfounded by what he saw. Although he was already at the peak of the form synthesis stage, he was still shocked by Murong Yu's strength. This leader is really a freak. How did he cultivate his strength? When he reaches my level, or even higher, how terrifying will his power be? Originally, when Murong Yu was in the fusion stage, he could already kill a spirit-severing stage expert. Coupled with the various treasures, Murong Yu would be able to kill a body integration stage cultivator, even if he didn't use the golden skeleton and the like. Of course, this was only Murong Yu's imagination. Even if he was no match for a cultivator at the form synthesis stage, a cultivator at the spirit-severing stage was no threat to Murong Yu. In fact, there was no one in the cultivation world who could pose a threat to Murong Yu. Perhaps, even if Murong Yu managed to enter the He Tu and Luo Shu worlds before entering the extreme divine realm, he would still be trapped by someone's divine ability, unable to escape. However, when Hichu's magical teleportation array was successfully made, Muronyu didn't have to worry about this at all. As long as he entered the teleportation array, he could teleport away instantly. It was even more useful than the teleportation of a cultivator at the crossing tribulation stage, or even an immortal. After all, teleportation could only be done for short distances, but Muronyu's teleportation had no distance limit. Of course, the premise was that there was a formation. It was precisely because of Hichu's teleportation array that Muronyu decided to do something big this time. Now, even if he became the enemy of the entire cultivation world, he was not afraid. Muronyu was naturally overjoyed when he sensed his powerful strength. However, this was not what made him the happiest. The happiest thing was that his lifespan had doubled again. 100,000 years. 100,000 years of lifespan. At this time, Muronyu's lifespan was already close to the crossing calamity stage cultivators, and even longer than some crossing calamity stage cultivators. With my lifespan and breakthrough speed, even if I don't deliberately cultivate, it won't be a problem for me to ascend in the future. Muronyu thought happily in his heart. Compared to those cultivators who cultivated for 100,000 years and still couldn't successfully pass the tribulation, Muronyu didn't have any pressure to pass the tribulation. Moreover, he had incomparable confidence in becoming an immortal. Ordinary cultivators might use hundreds of thousands of years and still be unable to completely transform their physical body into an immortal body and eventually die from exhaustion of lifespan. However, Muronyu was not afraid at all because he had a lifespan of 100,000 years when he was only in the heartbeat stage. Then what if he entered the transformation stage? A transformation stage cultivator had a lifespan of 500,000 years. Then, after Muronyu broke through to the transformation stage, how terrifying would his lifespan be? It would directly increase by 10 times to 5 million years. These were all things for the future. Many thoughts flashed through Muronyu's mind, but he didn't think too much about it. As long as I passed the tribulation, my physical body should be able to reach the level of a grade 4 spirit tool. Muronyu's eyes flickered with cold light, and then he stood up. There were no tribulation clouds forming in the sky. It wasn't that the extreme stage couldn't pass the tribulation, but that Muronyu's realm had been suppressed by him, and he was still at the peak of the fusion stage. The heavenly tribulation could not only make Muronyu stronger, but it was also a big gift that Muronyu prepared for the various sects that were waiting to ambush him in the square outside. Zhang Ao, you stay here for me. Don't go out before I come back. Muronyu ordered. Zhang Ao obeyed. He didn't ask where Muronyu was going, nor did he ask if he could leave in time before the extreme stage closed. He only needed to faithfully carry out Muronyu's orders. With a flash, Muronyu entered the Hichu Luoshu world and sensed a little in the altar. Then, Muronyu stepped into the altar, and his figure instantly disappeared. The square in front of the extreme stage's exit was very different from before the extreme stage's opening. Here, a large number of buildings rose from the ground. These buildings were obviously the shops of the various sects, chambers of commerce, and auction houses. Every time before the extreme stage closed, this place would be like this. This was because there were all kinds of spiritual herbs and spiritual medicines in the extreme stage. These shops were doing business here, buying all kinds of spiritual herbs and spiritual medicines, as well as all kinds of refining materials. Naturally, the Hidden Fairy Valley also had shops here. As the new saintess of the Hidden Fairy Valley, Zhao Jiqing naturally had a place to stay here. At this moment, Zhao Jiqing was in her room with a worried expression. This was because she already knew that the various sects were going to ambush Muronyu. At this moment, she was worried about Muronyu. What are you thinking about? At this moment, the void in Zhao Jiqing's room rippled slightly, and then a figure appeared out of thin air. Chapter 163. Zhao Jiqing was taken aback at first, but then she calmed down. Of course, this was because she recognized Muronyu's voice. Otherwise, she would definitely be scared out of her wits. However, even so, she was still shocked. This was her room, and she was also a heartbeat stage cultivator. How could someone walk in without her noticing? If his strength was much higher than her, then it was natural. However, Moron, you couldn't do this, right? Furthermore, this was the hidden Immortal Valley's territory. It was impossible for Murong Yu to enter this place without alerting others, especially when Zhao Jiqing found that Murong Yu appeared here out of thin air. How did you come in? Zhao Jiqing turned around and looked at Murong Yu, asking with a strange look. Zhao Jiqing felt very strange in her heart. Murong Yu definitely hadn't come out of the extreme heaven realm yet, because if he swaggered out, then those cultivators from the major sects would have already taken action. But now, there was no sign of them taking action outside. Could it be that Murong Yu didn't leave from the extreme heaven realm's exit? Zhao Jiqing's heart suddenly flashed with this thought. I didn't leave from the extreme heaven realm's exit. Murong Yu waved his hand and set up a soundproof restriction in the room, and then roughly explained the matter of the teleportation array. He was absolutely assured about Zhao Jiqing. Moreover, he didn't need to hide it from her. The reason why he appeared beside Zhao Jiqing out of thin air was because of the jade slip that Murong Yu gave her before Zhao Jiqing left the extreme heaven realm. Those jade slips were actually sealed teleportation arrays. It was precisely because he sensed these teleportation arrays that Murong Yu directly teleported over. Zhao Jiqing was shocked, but after the shock, she felt relieved. Murong Yu had too many enemies, and they were too strong. And now that Murong Yu had this method, at least they wouldn't have to worry about his safety. At the same time, Zhao Jiqing was pleasantly surprised. The secrets of Hichu, Luoshu, and the teleportation formation were definitely Murong Yu's greatest reliance and secret. And now, Murong Yu had told him the secret. In other words, in Murong Yu's heart, Zhao Jiqing was very important, and he trusted her very much. Zhao Jiqing looked at Murong Yu emotionally, but she didn't say anything. Since you've already left the extreme celestial realm, you should quickly leave this place. Those sects wanted to ambush you. As if she suddenly remembered something, Zhao Jiqing suddenly said somewhat anxiously. Murong Yu shook his head and laughed. Don't worry about me. They can't do anything to me. It's just that this time, they've prepared a big gift for me. Although you are still very dangerous. In the end, your strength is still not strong enough. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to go out and see what's going on outside. While speaking, Murong Yu was about to leave. I'll go with you, Zhao Jiqing said. Murong Yu shook his head. It's not suitable for you to be with me now. Seeing the disappointment on Zhao Jiqing's face, Murong Yu smiled and said, once I'm strong enough, they'll have some misgivings. When that time comes, I'll be able to walk openly in the cultivation world. While speaking, Murong Yu opened the door and walked out. The moment he left the room, he reached out and wiped his face. Then, he turned into an ordinary middle-aged man. It was the middle-aged man mask of his three masks. As for the faint fragrance that was originally emitted from his body, it had already completely disappeared when he entered the heartbeat stage. The heartbeat stage was the first dangerous stage of cultivation. The heart began to throb. This process was extremely dangerous. In this stage, the cultivator would have feelings such as confusion. The slightest bit of carelessness would lead to chi deviation and ultimately death. In fact, the reason why the heartbeat stage was like this was because the refinement in the cultivator's dantian had gradually transformed into the appearance of a heart. In fact, this unique heart looked a bit like the cultivator himself. In other words, it was the nascent soul. However, this unique heart was not the nascent soul, but just similar to the nascent soul. It was precisely because of the beating of this unique heart and the beating of the cultivator's original heart that the cultivator would feel palpitations and heartbeats. At this time, Murong Yu's dantian had a total of 9 black unique hearts. The 9 unique hearts and the beating of Murong Yu's original heart reflected each other, causing his heart to throb more fiercely than ordinary cultivators. 9 unique hearts compared to ordinary cultivators in the heartbeat stage. were 9 times more dangerous. Of course, the greater the danger, the greater the strength. Murong Yu stage directly rushed to the peak of the heartbeat stage under the effect of the breakthrough pill. The advantage of doing this was that it allowed him to cross the danger of the heartbeat stage. As long as he entered the spiritual silence stage, the excitement of his heart would disappear, and the danger of the first stage of cultivation would naturally disappear. And after the lotus flower transformed into a unique heart, the faint fragrance on Murong Yu's body naturally disappeared. And in this way, Murong Yu wearing a mask, even if he met Yu Mengqing and the others face to face, they would not be able to recognize Murong Yu. Therefore, at this time, Murong Yu swaggered into the square. The square was very lively. Many cultivators who came out of the extreme heavenly realm more or less had some gains. Apart from handing over a portion to the sect, the rest was theirs to keep. Therefore, in the square, there were shops everywhere and people trading. However, this year it was different here. Because out of the 10 great sects, there were disciples from 6 great sects who did not come out of the extreme heavenly realm. Zhuxianzong, Yuan Su sect, Limitless Sword sect, Purple Flame sect, Tianji sect, and Divine Talisman sect. Their disciples were all annihilated in the extreme heavenly realm. The elders of the 6 great sects were furious. Those disciples who died were nothing to the 10 great sections. But not a single person came out, which made the 6 great sects lose face. From now on, the 6 great sects would be ridiculed by many cultivators in the cultivation world for countless years. Why were the disciples of Purple Flame sect, Tianji sect, and Divine Talisman sect all annihilated? No one knew. And the reason why the other 3 great sects were annihilated was because of Murong Yu. That Murong Yu is really powerful. He actually dared to kill people from the 10 great sects in the extreme heavenly realm. Isn't he afraid of death? Yuan Su sect and Zhuxianzong were originally chasing after Murong Yu. Even if Murong Yu didn't kill their disciples, they wouldn't have let Murong Yu go. In any case, the experts of the 3 great sects can't enter the extreme heavenly realm. With the strength of Murong Yu and that Zhang Ao, they're invincible in the extreme heavenly realm. That's true. The spirit chi in the extreme heavenly realm is so dense. If it were me, I wouldn't come out. Someone said, "Are you an idiot? Don't you know that the extreme heavenly realm is very dangerous?" In the past, there were people who stayed in the extreme heavenly realm, but have you heard of anyone who came out after 10 years? If they could really stay in the extreme heavenly realm, then Zhang Ao wouldn't be the only body fusion stage cultivator. There should even be a lot of transformation stage cultivators, but there really isn't such an expert now. What does this mean? There are unknown dangers in the extreme heavenly realm, and this danger will only appear after the extreme heavenly realm closes. Since it's so dangerous, it's impossible for Murong Yu to not know. Is he really going to stay in there and not come out? You're an idiot, but Murong Yu is not stupid. Doesn't he know that he has an immortal sword? This is a huge temptation for cultivators. It's said that there are already many experts of the sects blocking the entrance of the extreme heavenly realm. As long as Murong Yu dares to show up. In fact, the fact that many sects were outside trying to kill Murong Yu is no secret. Thus, after Murong Yu walked around the area, he was able to grasp the situation. What an insatiable person. Murong Yu inwardly sneered. Don't these people know that greedy people usually end up in a miserable state? The 10 great sects all have people here. Murong Yu frowned. He found that the 10 great sects were actually in the square. Although he didn't know if they wanted to kill him, Mystic Moon sect probably won't kill me, and Hidden Fairy Valley probably won't as well. However, it seems like I should give him a warning. Murong Yu muttered in his heart. Yu Mengqing was the young sect master of Mystic Moon sect, and Yu Lucio was a decent person. She probably wouldn't kill him. As for Hidden Fairy Valley, they were vaguely the leader of the 10 great sections. They probably wouldn't do such a thing. And the big gift that Murong Yu prepared for the great sects was a very big gift. It could easily harm the innocent. Jiqing, You guys from Hidden Fairy Valley should quickly leave the square. And, at the same time, help me inform Yu Mengqing to leave as well. As for the reason, don't ask. Murong Yu directly teleported to Zhao Jiqing's side and said to her, I'll try my best. Zhao Jiqing didn't ask for the reason. She knew that Murong Yu definitely had a reason for asking her to do so. What? You want to leave the extreme Heaven Square now? The leader of Hidden Fairy Valley this time was Huangfu Ranxue, Zhao Jiqing's master. Hence, Zhao Jiqing directly went to her. Master, forget it. You don't have to say any more. Our Hidden Fairy Valley originally had no intention of getting involved in Murong Yu's matter. We bought almost everything, so it's time for us to leave. Huangfu Ranxue waved her hand and immediately agreed to Zhao Jiqing's request. She didn't even ask for the reason. Zhao Jiqing was overjoyed. Since Huangfu Ranxue didn't ask, she didn't have to be in a difficult position. After hurriedly saying goodbye to her master, Zhao Jiqing immediately went to find Yu Mengqing. Without any reason, Zhao Jiqing just said, Murong Yu asked me to pass this message. Then, Yu Mengqing quickly went to find her mother, the sect master of Mystic Moon's sect. Not long after, the people from Hidden Fairy Valley began to retreat. Then, the people from Mystic Moon's sect slowly retreated and left the square, although they felt that their actions were a little strange. But to the other sects, without two great sects, especially the Hidden Fairy Valley, there were only benefits and no disadvantages. However, they didn't know that the Grim Reaper was already waving at them. Chapter 164. It's time for us to leave the extreme Heaven Realm. Murong Yu smiled as he looked at Zhang Ao, who had returned from killing Zuxianzong and the other disciples of the three major sections. Today was the last day of the extreme Heaven Realm's opening. After returning from the outside, Murong Yu personally guarded the exit of the extreme Heaven Realm. Zhang Ao, on the other hand, had gone out to kill the disciples of the three major sections. Now that Zhang Ao had returned, it meant that the disciples of the three major sects had been killed by him. Even if they were not killed, they would not be able to leave the extreme Heaven Realm before the exit closed. The people outside are trying to kill me. The main thing is that once I appear, I will be attacked by an endless amount of power. Therefore, before leaving, I will send you to a safe place. Murong Yu said to Zhang Ao. Zhang Ao nodded without any hesitation. He absolutely obeyed Murong Yu's arrangement. Therefore, Murong Yu waved his hand and sent Zhang Ao to the Hichu Luoshu world. He was still sitting cross-legged at the exit of the extreme Heaven Realm. The moment before the exit of the extreme Heaven Realm closed, Murong Yu finally stood up. He first activated the protection function of the Purple Ribbon Immortal Robe, and at the same time took out the first-grade immortal weapon that he had snatched from Zuxianzong's disciple. You want to kill me? Today, I will give you a big gift. Murong Yu sneered and instantly released his seal. In an instant, his cultivation level jumped from the peak of the fusion stage to the peak of the heartbeat stage. Boom! Just as Murong Yu's cultivation level increased, he no longer suppressed his aura. On the contrary, he instantly increased his strength to the extreme. Murong Yu is someone who is struck by lightning and favored by the heavenly realm. The moment he released his aura, an explosion sounded from the top of his head. A large tribulation cloud appeared out of thin air and quickly condensed above his head. The corner of Murong Yu's mouth curled into a sneer. His figure flashed as he charged into the extreme celestial realm's exit. Outside the exit of the extreme Heaven Realm in the square, countless cultivators looked at the exit of the extreme celestial realm with excitement on their faces, because the extreme celestial realm was about to close. If Murong Yu did not want to stay in there for 10 years, then it was time to come out. In everyone's eyes, Murong Yu was no longer a simple Murong Yu. Instead, it was a moving treasury. Immortal swords, golden corpses, and large amounts of essence recovery pills that could rapidly increase one's cultivation realm. Murong Yu seemed to have a lot of treasures on him. Dharma treasures, pills, and so on. There was really everything. It was precisely because of this that everyone in the square was so excited. This was because whoever killed Murong, you would be able to obtain all the treasures on Murong Yu's body. That was a treasure that even a transformation stage cultivator would covet. The extreme celestial realm is about to close. Could it be that Murong Yu doesn't dare to come out? On the square, a cultivator said with some hesitation. Maybe. No one was sure whether Murong Yu would come out or not, because no one would choose to come out at this time. The premise was that he was not afraid of death or did not know. Was he not afraid of death? Would Murong Yu not know that someone was ambushing him here? He definitely knew, and he was also afraid of death and did not want to die. Therefore, no one was confident that Murong Yu would come out of the extreme celestial realm. Lying in ambush here was just waiting for a glimmer of hope. Suddenly, the exit of the extreme celestial realm flashed with a dazzling light. Someone is coming out. This light meant that someone was coming out. Therefore, when they saw this light, everyone became excited. Most of them had already raised their strength, preparing to kill Murong Yu the moment he appeared. Then they would snatch the items on his body and run away. Rumble. Just as the exit of the extreme celestial realm flashed, the sky above the square suddenly exploded out of thin air. Then, a large amount of dark clouds quickly gathered in the void, condensing into a tribulation cloud. However, at this time, no one noticed the strange phenomenon in the sky. Their minds were all focused on the exit of the extreme celestial realm. You despicable and shameless trash, your young master, Murong Yu, has come out of the extreme celestial realm. If you want to kill me, come. Ha ha! Before Murong Yu's figure appeared, his arrogant laughter had already spread far and wide. Trash! Hearing Murong Yu's words, the faces of the people present could not help but turn gloomy. Among these people, there were many elders and experts of the major sects, and there was no lack of cultivators in the tribulation passing stage. There were even cultivators in the transformation stage. Being called trash by a junior, no one's face looked good. You're courting death. A roar came from the crowd, and a large ring hand suddenly reached out from the crowd, grabbing fiercely at the exit of the extreme celestial realm. The moment this person made a move, it was as if a flame was ignited. One by one, they roared and reached out their large hands, rushing toward the exit of the extreme celestial realm. Ha ha! Murong Yu laughed loudly, but did not dodge or counterattack. He just stood in the air. Boom! 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 At this moment, countless tribulation clouds formed in the void above Murong Yu's head, and after a series of explosions, tribulation lightning blasted down like a storm. Looking at the tribulation lightning above his head, Murong Yu's eyes flashed with a hint of madness. Boom! The tribulation lightning blasted down like raindrops, covering the entire void and blasted toward Murong Yu. Immediately, the power of the surrounding people, such as the large hands, were directly destroyed by the tribulation lightning. After a loud bang, Murong Yu's entire body was suddenly blasted to the ground. Even with the protection of the purple ribbon immortal robe, he was still bombarded until he grimaced in pain, and the blood in his body was surging like a raging river. However, during this process, Murong Yu withdrew the purple ribbon immortal robe in time, and he began to guide the power of the tribulation lightning to temper his physical body. This is tribulation lightning, who is transcending tribulation here. At this moment, everyone finally reacted, and their faces turned pale with fright. In the cultivation world, whether it was the 49 heavenly tribulations or other heavenly realms, the person transcending the tribulation would find a remote place where there were few people. In addition to being afraid of people causing trouble, another important reason was that if the heavenly tribulation sensed a large number of cultivators near the person transcending the tribulation, then the heavenly realm would become stronger than before due to the number of cultivators. Originally, Murong Yu's heavenly tribulation during the heartbeat stage was not enough to cause these people to panic. However, one had to know that there were tens of thousands of people in the square. In other words, the heavenly tribulation was no longer Murong Yu's heartbeat stage tribulation, but the heavenly tribulation of tens of thousands of people. Damn it, we've been tricked. Run. With tens of thousands of people transcending the tribulation, even an immortal would immediately flee. Therefore, after discovering the heavenly tribulation, everyone was so scared that their faces turned pale. No one dared to think about the treasures on Murong Yu's body. Escaping was more important. Although the immortal sword was powerful, if you lost your life, even if you were given a divine weapon, it would be useless. Seeing that everyone was beginning to scatter and run, how could Murong Yu, who had long planned to kill them, let them do as they wished? Without any scruples, he released his aura to the limit in order to attract an even more terrifying tribulation lightning. At the same time, Murong Yu's figure flashed and disappeared. In the next moment, when he appeared again, he was already in the center of the square. However, in less than a breath's time, he disappeared again. This time, he appeared in the east of the square. When Murong Yu appeared in the square that day in disguise, he had already placed Hichu's array in every corner of the square. Therefore, with just a thought, he could instantly appear in the vicinity of any array. Rumble, with tens of thousands of people transcending the tribulation, it was probably the most terrifying heavenly tribulation in the history of the cultivation world. The moment Murong Yu moved, the terrifying heavenly tribulation lightning, which carried a frightening and terrifying pressure, shattered the void, enveloped the heaven and earth, and blasted down. A wave of heavenly tribulation lightning blasted down, destroying the entire square. Under such a terrifying heavenly tribulation lightning, a large number of people in the square were immediately blasted into powder. Rumble, rumble. Streaks of heavenly tribulation lightning, which were as dense as raindrops, blasted down continuously, mixed with the shrill screams of countless cultivators. The cultivators who were struck by the heavenly tribulation lightning were all blasted into powder. Streaks of heavenly tribulation lightning blasted down, and the cultivators were cut down like wheat being cut down. The scene was extremely spectacular, bloody, and cruel. It was even more terrifying than a battlefield by 1,000 times. And the first person to bear the brunt of the heavenly tribulation lightning was the target of care. A heavenly tribulation lightning, which was as thick as a bucket, blasted down. Murong Yu let out a shrill scream, and his entire body was instantly blasted to the ground. This was because he had the purple ribbon holy robe. Otherwise, even his physical body, which was at the level of a third-grade spiritual weapon, would not be able to withstand the heavenly tribulation lightning. Gritting his teeth, Murong Yu's body swayed, and he used the army formula to increase his speed to the maximum. He turned into a stream of light and began to move rapidly in the square. Streaks of heavenly tribulation lightning seemed to have locked onto Murong Yu. Wherever Murong Yu turned into a stream of heavenly tribulation lightning, the void was filled with dense heavenly tribulation lightning. The scene was extremely spectacular, but it was hair-raising at the same time. Boom, boom, boom. Murong Yu increased his speed to the maximum, and he managed to avoid part of the heavenly tribulation lightning. However, the cultivators around him were unlucky. Wherever Murong Yu passed, the void within a few dozen miles around him was filled with heavenly tribulation lightning. The other cultivators did not even have time to scream before they were blasted into powder. Before the second wave of heavenly tribulation lightning struck, there were only a few people left standing in the square. Tens of thousands of people could not even withstand the first wave of heavenly tribulation lightning and were directly blasted to death. Murong Yu, you're courting death. Chapter 165. After the first wave of tribulation lightning struck, tens of thousands of people in the square were directly struck into powder. They didn't even have time to react. The first wave of tribulation lightning gradually dissipated. At this time, there were only a few people who could stand on the square. The tribulation transcendent stage cultivators of the major sects and even some of the transformation stage cultivators. However, these cultivators didn't escape or leave the square. Instead, they rushed toward the battered and exhausted Murong Yu with murderous intent. Heavenly Tribulation. As long as the Heavenly Tribulation was triggered, no matter where you went, the Heavenly Tribulation would lock onto you and kill you directly. Unless you went to a place where even the Heavenly Tribulation couldn't sense you. There should be such a place in the cultivation world. However, it was obvious that the people in the square couldn't hide in those places before the second wave of tribulation lightning struck, even if they were transformation stage cultivators. Therefore, they were angry and knew that they couldn't escape. Therefore, they all wanted to kill Murong Yu, the culprit, before they were killed by the tribulation lightning. At that time, even if they died, they wouldn't have so many regrets. At this time, Murong Yu was in a sorry state because he had an immortal weapon. However, he was much better than these tribulation transcendent stage and transformation stage cultivators. Seeing the crowd rushing over, Murong Yu only sneered in his heart. With a thought, a powerful aura rose into the sky again. Boom! Perhaps because the heavenly tribulation caused by tens of thousands of people was too terrifying. After the first wave of tribulation lightning dissipated, the second wave of tribulation lightning didn't need time to condense and struck again. Want to kill me? Go to hell, all of you. Looking at the dozens of tribulation transcendent stage and transformation stage cultivators rushing over, Murong Yu's face was a little ferocious. For some sects, they had an extremely large number of disciples, numbering in the hundreds of thousands. Although killing some of their ordinary disciples was humiliating, it couldn't shake their strength at all. However, if they killed their tribulation transcendent stage cultivators, especially those in the transformation stage, it would really be a heavy loss for them. In the top 10 sects, there were many tribulation transcendent stage cultivators. However, there were very few cultivators who could successfully transcend the tribulation and enter the transformation stage. These cultivators who successfully transcended the tribulation were the top strength of their sections. Regardless of the sect, cultivators of this level were in high demand. This was because it was extremely difficult for a cultivator to reach the tribulation passing stage. As for the cultivators in the transformation period, they would either exhaust their lifespan or successfully transform into an immortal body and ascend to the immortal realm. One less was one less. If a transformation stage cultivator was killed, even the top 10 sects would go crazy. There were also 1 or 2 transformation stage cultivators in the square. These cultivators were truly pitiful. Whoosh! With a thought, Murong Yu disappeared on the spot. In fact, he had entered the Hichu Luoshu world and teleported to the other side of the plaza through the altar. Rumble, boundless tribulation, lightning covered the entire square, and even the area within a radius of over 1,000 miles. Like dense raindrops, they filled every inch of the void. Under the terrifying bombardment of the tribulation lightning, even the void was shattered. Several crossing calamity stage cultivators were unable to withstand the might of the tribulation lightning and were reduced to ashes. With a burst of blood-curdling screams, all the crossing calamity stage cultivators were directly killed. Although the 2 transformation stage cultivators roared unwillingly, they could not escape the fate of being killed by the tribulation lightning. The 2 layers of tribulation lightning killed tens of thousands of people, including dozens of crossing calamity stage cultivators and 2 transformation stage cultivators. These crossing calamity stage and transformation stage cultivators were the experts and elders of the various sections. Originally, they wanted to ambush Murong Yu and seize the treasures on Murong Yu's body. They did not expect that they would be killed by Murong Yu's heavenly tribulation. In fact, everyone had anticipated every situation, including the golden skeleton on Murong Yu's body. However, no one knew that Murong Yu would attract heavenly tribulation every time he broke through a realm. Originally, Murong Yu's heavenly tribulation was not frightening at all. However, he deliberately set it up and used tens of thousands of people to trigger it, resulting in the terrifying scene of tens of thousands of people undergoing tribulation. The heavenly tribulation of tens of thousands of people was countless times more terrifying than the one that the fierce man on the Demon Mountain had undergone. When news of this spread, the cultivation world was shocked. The tranquil cultivation world seemed to have turned into a stormy ocean in an instant. The sects whose disciples had been killed were enraged and began to hunt down Muronyu all over the world. With that, Muronyu would be practically unrivaled under the heavens. However, since Muronyu dared to kill so many people, he naturally had something to rely on. Of course, this was a story for later. After the 2 layers of tribulation lightning, Muronyu was charred on the outside and tender on the inside. Even the protective light of the purple ribbon robe dimmed by the tribulation lightning. Thought. Even with the protection of the purple ribbon immortal robe, Muronyu was still shaken to the point where his blood and chi were in turmoil. Several of his meridians were also shattered by the lightning. Boom, boom, boom. Bolts of tribulation lightning bombarded Muronyu's body, causing him to feel dizzy and violently spurt out blood. Although his body was a 3rd-grade spirit treasure, he couldn't take it anymore. His robe had been blasted to smithereens. On the other hand, Muronyu's body was covered in bloody cracks. They looked like the cracks on a piece of porcelain. It was a terrifying sight. In the Hichu Luoshu world, countless pills burned to quickly replenish Muronyu's strength and repair his injured body. Rumble. After an earth-shattering explosion, Muronyu was viciously struck to the ground. The 2nd tribulation lightning finally dissipated. Not daring to delay, Muronyu sat cross-legged on the ground and began to recover. There were still 7 more layers to go. While he was recovering, Muronyu felt bitter in his heart. At this rate, even if he could withstand the 3rd tribulation lightning, he wouldn't be able to withstand the 4th tribulation lightning. He had underestimated the tribulation lightning triggered by tens of thousands of people. Just 2 bolts of tribulation lightning had almost destroyed the purple ribbon immortal robe. What was even more difficult for him to imagine was how powerful the most powerful 9th stage of lightning tribulation would be. How terrifying would it be? Am I going to be killed by the tribulation lightning this time? Muronyu thought bitterly as he stood up. The 3rd tribulation lightning had already struck. I'm going to have to use the Hichu Luoshu this time. Muronyu felt very helpless. Before the 3rd tribulation lightning struck, he summoned the Hichu Luoshu and held it above his head. The Hichu Luoshu turned back into an ancient scroll. After it opened, it emitted a faint yellow light that enveloped Muronyu. Rumble, the 3rd tribulation lightning finally struck. At this moment, the Hichu Luoshu showed its terrifying side. Countless bolts of tribulation lightning struck its body. However, the Hitu and the Luoshu flickered with an earthy yellow light and blocked the tribulation lightning. Seeing this, Muronyu was slightly stunned. Then he was overjoyed. The Hichu Luoshu could block the tribulation lightning. In other words, there was hope for him to pass the tribulation this time. After his great joy, Muronyu was immediately filled with confidence. The Hichu Luoshu emitted a faint yellow light. When it fell, it enveloped Muronyu firmly like a protective shield. It was so tight that not a single bolt of tribulation lightning could strike it. This was a great opportunity. Muronyu was overjoyed. Therefore, he carefully controlled the Hichu Luoshu and opened a crack to let in a portion of the tribulation lightning. Then, Muronyu began to channel the energy into his body and began to refine his body. Not long after, Muronyu brought out the phoenix spear. It soared into the sky and disappeared into the tribulation lightning. The phoenix spear was Zhao Yun's personal weapon. It was originally very powerful. However, in the battle where Zhao Yun fell, it was damaged and turned into a magic tool. All this time, Muronyu had been using his primal chaos energy to nourish it so that it could return to its peak state as soon as possible. However, it was still too weak. It was extremely difficult to repair. The power contained within the tribulation lightning was extremely powerful. While Murong was tempering his body, he also wanted to use the Tribulation Lightning's power to repair his Phoenix Spear. As for whether the Phoenix Spear would be destroyed by the Tribulation Lightning, Murong had never considered this question. After all, the Tribulation Lightning was very terrifying. However, Zhao Yun at his peak and his enemies were even more terrifying. Even those experts could not destroy the Phoenix Spear. So how could the Tribulation Lightning damage the Phoenix Spear? Therefore, Murong was completely at ease. Because of the Hichu Luo Shu, Murong was no longer in danger and guided the Tribulation Lightning to refine his body. At this moment, all the cultivators in Extreme Sky City, far away from the entrance of the Extreme Sky Realm, were alarmed. From afar, the entrance of the Extreme Sky Realm was shrouded in tribulation clouds and lightning flashed. Waves of terrifying pressure came from afar, causing people's hearts to tremble. Countless cultivators had even left Extreme Sky City and approached. They wanted to see what was going on. Some experienced cultivators already knew that the tribulation clouds and lightning were because someone was transcending a tribulation. Moreover, from afar, those terrifying auras were spreading out in waves, as if they could destroy heaven and earth. It was as if the end of the world had arrived. It was extremely terrifying. Even the cultivators in the transformation stage were shocked by the terrifying pressure, and their hearts trembled. They felt fear. Who was transcending the tribulation? That's the square in front of the Extreme Sky Realm. Could it be? Many cultivators' expressions changed as they flew forward carefully. The reason why they were so careful was because they knew how terrifying the Tribulation Lightning was. If they also entered that area, the Tribulation Lightning would think that they were also transcending the tribulation. At that time, a bolt of Tribulation Lightning would strike them and they would die. Chapter 166. No one dared to get close to the area shrouded by the tribulation clouds. Standing in the distance, everyone could only see the gloomy tribulation clouds in the sky. Countless tribulation lightning fell like raindrops, filling the entire void. Apart from the gloomy tribulation clouds and the flickering tribulation lightning, no one could clearly see who was undergoing the tribulation within the tribulation clouds. However, they knew that there must be someone under the tribulation clouds. If the person transcending the tribulation had been killed, the tribulation clouds would have dissipated long ago. Now that the tribulation clouds had not dissipated, it meant that the person transcending the tribulation was still alive. However, everyone was shocked when they saw that. Even from afar, they could still feel the terrifying power of the tribulation lightning. Even an expert in the transformation stage would feel fear, let alone a cultivator who was undergoing a tribulation. How could they withstand such a terrifying tribulation thunder? Who is transcending the tribulation here? Everyone was shocked and kept looking at the tribulation clouds, trying to see who was transcending the tribulation. Tribulation clouds, tribulation lightning. It's clearly transcending a tribulation, but it's not the 49 heavenly tribulations. Who is transcending such a terrifying tribulation? Someone said with a frown. The 49 heavenly tribulations were what cultivators in the later stages of the tribulation stage had to go through. The 49 heavenly tribulations were very obvious compared to other tribulations, because the stairway to heaven and the gate of immortality would appear during the 49 heavenly tribulations. However, there was no stairway to heaven and the gate of immortality. Since it's not the 49 heavenly tribulations, is it an ordinary tribulation? But ordinary cultivators usually don't transcend tribulations. They have to be very heaven-defying to transcend the tribulation. In addition to being shocked, everyone felt very heavy in their hearts. If the person transcending the tribulation was not transcending the 49 heavenly tribulations, it meant that the person had a heaven-defying aptitude. Whether it was heaven-defying or not, Murong did not know. At this time, the fifth tribulation lightning had gradually dissipated. With the help of Hichu Luo Shu, Murong transcended the tribulation without any danger. The tribulation triggered by tens of thousands of people was terrifying. However, no matter how terrifying the tribulation was, it could not shake Hichu Luoshu. Relying on Hichu Luoshu, Muronyu constantly guided the tribulation lightning to temper his body. At this moment, Muronyu's physical body had already broken through to the 4th stage spirit chi realm. This was only the first 5 stages of the heavenly tribulation. There were still 4 more stages of the heavenly tribulation, each stronger than the last. Although Muronyu's heart was heavy, he felt that his physical body should be able to break through another realm and reach the level of a grade 5 spirit weapon. Compared to the transformation of Muronyu's body, the transformation of the Phoenix Spear was even greater. After continuously absorbing the power of several waves of tribulation lightning, its grade had been forcefully raised to the rank of a 7th grade spiritual artifact. Perhaps, after the 9 heavenly tribulations, the Phoenix Spear will be able to break through to the immortal tier. While Muronyu was pondering, his face became serious again because the 6th tribulation lightning had already descended. Rumble, tribulation clouds covered the sky, and tribulation lightning raged. It was like the scene of doomsday. Zhao Jiqing stood on a mountain peak far away from the tribulation clouds. She looked at the terrifying tribulation lightning in the distance with a worried expression. As smart as she was, she had already realized that the person undergoing the tribulation was most likely Muronyu. Because of Muronyu's previous words, he wanted to give a big gift to the various large sections. After this wave of tribulation lightning, the various large sects were all dead or injured. Only Muronyu was still bitterly holding on. The reason why she was sure that Muronyu was fine was that Zhao Jiqing still had Muronyu's soul crystal in her hands. The soul crystal was not shattered, which meant that Muronyu was temporarily fine. Muronyu was fine, but that did not mean that Zhao Jiqing was relieved. Looking at the terrifying tribulation lightning that seemed to be able to destroy the world, no one knew if anyone would be able to withstand it. Before seeing the tribulation clouds dissipate, and before seeing Muronyu safe and sound, Zhao Jiqing would continue to worry. What's going on? Is someone undergoing the tribulation? On the other side, Yu Mengqing and her mother, Yu Luxiu, as well as some disciples of the Mystic Moon sect, looked into the distance in shock. Seeing such a terrifying scene, Yu Mengqing and even Yu Luxiu, who was in the transformation stage, turned pale with fright. If they had not left the square early, they would have been killed by the tribulation lightning. Among the top 10 sects, only the people of the Mystic Moon sect and the Hidden Fairy Valley had left the square early. None of their disciples were injured. As for the disciples of the other sects, they would have been blasted to smithereens. Mengqing, was it really Muronyu who told us to leave the square? Yu Luxiu, who was shocked, turned to look at the shocked Yu Mengqing and asked. At that time, Sister Jiqing came over and told me so. Also, didn't the people of the Hidden Fairy Valley leave as well? As Yu Mengqing spoke, her eyes suddenly lit up. Mother, do you suspect that the instigator is Muronyu? Then, Yu Mengqing shook her head. He's just a small fusion stage cultivator. Is he really so heaven-defying that he can trigger a tribulation? Even if he did, he would have been killed by the tribulation long ago. Yu Mengqing's head was like a rattle drum. She did not believe that Muronyu's talent was so heaven-defying that he could trigger a tribulation. Moreover, with such a terrifying tribulation, even if he had an immortal artifact to protect his body, he would have been killed long ago. Except for Muronyu, he was courting death. Since Muronyu reminded us to leave in advance, even if this tribulation was not triggered by him, it has a lot to do with him. Also, Muronyu did not want to attack the people of the Mystic Moon sect. Yu Luxiu was not sure if this tribulation was really related to Muronyu. However, she was sure that Muronyu had something to do with this matter. In the future, our Mystic Moon sect must not be enemies with Muronyu. If we can help, we will do our best to help. Yu Luxiu made this decision in her heart. Boom! Lightning flashed all over Muronyu's body. After transforming the power of the tribulation lightning and tempering his body trembled. His body trembled violently. Then a powerful aura emanated from him, a grade 6 spiritual artifact. Feeling the powerful strength in his body, Yu could not help but moan comfortably. What did a grade 6 spiritual artifact mean? Even in the cultivation world, grade 6 spiritual artifacts were rare, let alone a grade 6 spiritual artifact body. The current Yu's body was equivalent to a grade 6 spiritual artifact in the cultivation world. His body could be used as a spiritual artifact. There are still 2 more tribulations. Looking at the dense tribulation clouds and the terrifying pressure above his head, Yu's expression became more and more serious. Yu, you're going to get me killed. In the Hichu Luoshu world, Hichu roared angrily. He gnashed his teeth in hatred and wished he could cancel the Hichu Luoshu and let the tribulation lightning directly blast Yu into powder. When the tribulation clouds bombarded the Hichu Luoshu world, they had already disappeared. However, they did not really disappear just like that. Instead, Hichu directly transferred the tribulation lightning to the Hichu Luoshu world. At this moment, half of the Hichu Luoshu world was blasted into powder by this terrifying tribulation lightning. In fact, the entire Hichu Luoshu world was filled with the terrifying power of this tribulation. Of course, although the tribulation was powerful, it could not destroy the Hichu Luoshu world. However, transferring the tribulation lightning required Hichu's help. Looking at the tribulation lightning that was more terrifying than the previous one, Hichu was in a hurry and was very tired. He did not even know how many millions of recovery pills he had burned, but they were just constantly replenishing Hichu's energy. Yu did not answer because the 8th tribulation lightning had already struck. Hichu continued to work hard, constantly transferring the tribulation lightning that bombarded the Hichu Luoshu world into the Hichu Luoshu world. Yu continued to guide the tribulation lightning to temper his body. Because of the Hichu Luoshu world, Yu was basically scared but not in danger. Not long after, the 8th tribulation lightning dissipated. There were no changes. Yu's physical body was not able to continue to break through. The Phoenix Spear, which had been promoted to the 9th grade, was suspended in the void above Yu's head, emitting a faint black light. The 9th tribulation lightning did not strike for a long time. At this moment, Yu's face was extremely solemn. For a guy like him, who was often struck by lightning and was envied by the heavens, he already knew that the 9th tribulation lightning was several times more terrifying than the previous 8 combined. Therefore, Yu summoned the Hichu Luoshu back, enlarged it, and then tightly wrapped himself in it. The Phoenix Spear was still suspended in the air above his head. Boom! After an earth-shattering sound, a bolt of lightning struck from the dense tribulation clouds. Completely different from the previous 8 tribulation lightning. There was only one bolt of lightning this time. It was a black bolt of lightning that was only the size of an arm. Why is there only one bolt of lightning? And it's black. Yu was very puzzled. According to his experience, the 9th tribulation lightning should also fill the sky with lightning. Although Yu had doubts in his heart, he still focused his attention, looking at the black bolt of lightning that was quickly striking him. Yu controlled the Phoenix Spear and stabbed it. Boom! Just as the Phoenix Spear moved, the black bolt of lightning suddenly accelerated and violently struck its body. Then, Yu saw the Phoenix Spear vibrate violently. Yu, who did not know what was going on, was puzzled. But at this moment, the black tribulation lightning suddenly accelerated. Then, under Yu's horrified gaze, it directly pierced through the Hichu Luoshu and violently struck his body. It can even pierce through the Hichu Luoshu. Yu had just this thought in his mind when his vision turned black, and he instantly lost consciousness. However, the black tribulation lightning directly entered his body. Crap! Chapter 167. In the Hichu Luoshu world, Hichu, who was gritting his teeth to transfer the ninth tribulation lightning to the Hichu Luoshu world, cried out in alarm when he saw the black tribulation lightning directly penetrate the Hichu Luoshu world. Just as he was about to do something, Muronyu was already hit and immediately fainted. He too yelled, "Not good." He too waved his hand and sucked Muronyu and the Phoenix Spear into the world of He-Tu and the Book of Luo. Then, with a swoosh, they disappeared. The moment Muronyu disappeared, or, to be precise, the moment the black tribulation lightning struck Muronyu, the tribulation clouds in the sky dissipated. After the tribulation clouds dissipated, the world regained its clarity and the sky was clear again. If it weren't for the mountains near the entrance of the extreme celestial realm, the earth would have been razed to the ground, showing what had just happened. Otherwise, it would seem as if nothing had happened. The tribulation clouds have disappeared. Did the person transcending the tribulation fail and get killed? Looking at the sky that had regained its calm, the nearby people all thought so. The reason why they guessed that the person transcending the tribulation had been killed by the tribulation lightning was because they didn't see the ninth tribulation lightning at all. Although there were very few cultivators who transcended this tribulation, it didn't mean that they lacked knowledge of the heavenly tribulation. Even the most ordinary heavenly tribulation had 9 tribulations, and the 49 heavenly tribulations had a total of 36 tribulations. The black tribulation lightning not only appeared very quickly, but it was also too small. Aside from Muronyu, there was no one else who noticed it. Of course, Hichu was an exception. It was because of this that they guessed that Muronyu had been killed. Swish, swish, swish. Although the tribulation clouds had dissipated, no one dared to take half a step forward. Before confirming that the tribulation clouds had really dissipated, they didn't dare to lose their lives because of a moment of recklessness. After half a day, someone turned into a stream of light and rushed into the sky above the original square. Looking at the flattened ground below and the huge pit that was thousands of meters deep, everyone was extremely shocked. The tribulation clouds didn't cover a large area, but the ground sank thousands of meters. In fact, it didn't sink, but the soil and stones were all blasted into powder by the tribulation lightning. Nothing. Apart from the raised land, there was nothing else. In other words, the tens of thousands of cultivators from the various sects in the square were all turned into ashes by the tribulation lightning. Thinking that tens of thousands of cultivators had been blasted into dust in half a day's time. They all sucked in a breath. In fact, they even felt a chill run down their spines, causing them to feel fear in their hearts. Who is the mastermind behind all of this? Everyone felt incomparably shocked. There were countless cultivators, and more than tens of thousands who died. But that was within the scope of the entire cultivation world. But now, tens of thousands cultivators. All this was most likely because of someone. However, although they were shocked by this person's ruthlessness, they weren't worried. They weren't too worried because they thought that the mastermind behind all this had already been killed. After all, the ninth tribulation lightning didn't strike. However, they didn't know that the ninth tribulation lightning had already struck Muronyu. It was unknown whether Muronyu was dead or alive. Zhao Jiqing also appeared in the ruins. After a long time, she heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that no one had discovered Muronyu. Muronyu didn't die because his soul crystal didn't shatter. Zhao Jiqing was worried that although Muronyu didn't die, he was seriously injured. Once he was discovered, he would definitely die. At this moment, she was completely relieved when she saw that Muronyu was nowhere to be found. Muronyu has the Hichu Luoshu and that magical teleportation array. How could he be in danger? Zhao Jiqing heaved a sigh of relief and laughed in her heart. However, what Zhao Jiqing didn't know was that Murong-yu was indeed in danger. It was a life-and-death crisis. If he wasn't careful, he would die. It's over. The tribulation lightning flattened this place. Will the entrance of the extreme heaven realm be destroyed as well? Suddenly, a shocked voice came from the crowd. Hearing that, everyone was shocked, because the original entrance of the extreme heaven realm had long been destroyed by the tribulation lightning. It can't be right. Everyone felt that something was wrong. If the entrance of the extreme heaven realm was destroyed, then they wouldn't be able to enter the extreme heaven realm in the future. However, no one dared to be sure. If they wanted to know the result, they would have to wait 10 years. After not finding any surviving cultivators nearby, everyone returned to the extreme heaven city. The news of tens of thousands of cultivators from various sects being killed by the heavenly tribulation also spread and shook the cultivation world. Not to mention how shocked the cultivation world was. The various sects were also furious because they went for wool and came home shorn. The black tribulation lightning was unstoppable. Before Murong-yu could react, it had already struck him. Murong-yu was immediately knocked unconscious. Fortunately, Hichu reacted in time and immediately swept Murong-yu into the Hichu Luoshu. In the Hichu Luoshu world, Murong-yu was lying on the ground with lightning flashing on his body. His physical body, which had reached the level of a 6th-grade spiritual weapon, had completely collapsed at this time. Ghastly, bone-deep cracks appeared on Murong-yu's body, one after another. Even the purple ribbon immortal robe, which had already recognized Murong-yu as its master, had fallen off at this time and turned back into a purple ribbon and fell to the ground. His body was full of cracks. Hichu didn't even dare to touch Murong-yu's physical body. He was afraid that once he touched Murong-yu's body, his physical body would immediately shatter. In addition, Murong-yu's aura was getting weaker and weaker. It seemed that because of the black tribulation lightning, Murong-yu had suffered heavy injuries. Hichu's face was terrifyingly gloomy. He didn't know what the black tribulation lightning was, and he had never heard of such a tribulation lightning. Even Hichu Luoshu couldn't resist the tribulation lightning. Although Murong-yu's physical body had reached the level of a 6th-grade spiritual weapon, it was already very strong that it didn't immediately shatter into pieces. However, at this time, his mood was very bad and he was very anxious. Seeing that Murong-yu's aura was getting weaker and weaker, if he didn't take any measures, Murong-yu might really die. He had the chaotic celestial body and cultivated the chaotic celestial body record. Hichu absolutely couldn't allow him to die. However, what could he do now? He didn't have any elixirs. What he had now was useless to save Murong-yu's life. With a gloomy face, Hichu muttered to himself for a while. Then, his body shook and he disappeared. When they reappeared, they were already in the underground karst cave of the 9th-grade spirit vein. Then, Hichu directly transferred Murong-yu to the huge river formed by the spiritual weapon below. Boy, I hope he can hold on. Seeing that Murong-yu's aura was no longer weakening in the terrifying spirit chi, Hichu breathed a sigh of relief. He had no other choice now. He could only let the 9th-grade spirit vein slowly heal Murong-yu's injuries. At this time, if someone could see Murong-yu's body, they would discover that his body, meridians, dantian, and even the 9 unique black lotus-formed hearts in his dantian had all disappeared. They were directly smashed into pieces by the black tribulation thunder. At this time, the black tribulation thunder was constantly swimming in Murong-yu's body. Wherever it passed, it revealed a strange, powerful, and terrifying power. This power was constantly destroying Murong-yu's body, meridians, and even life. However, all of this was happening in Murong-yu's body. Even Hichu couldn't see through it. Time passed, and a month had already passed. Although it can heal his injuries, it's too slow. Hichu frowned and muttered to himself. Or, after pondering for a while, Hichu waved his hand and immediately swept it into the Hichu Luoshu world. Then, he directly let go of the Hichu Luoshu, incomparably powerful spirit Qi suddenly surged into the Hichu Luoshu world, just like Morongyu in the ninth grade spirit vein. Time acceleration. Hichu shouted and began to burn the spirit weapon in the ninth grade spirit vein, directly accelerating the time in the Hichu Luoshu world. Because of the endless spiritual energy outside, the river diagram did not have any scruples and directly sped up time by 100 times. In other words, a day in the outside world was 3 months in the Hichu Luoshu world. A year in the outside world was 100 years in the Hichu Luoshu world. Of course, Hichu only reduced the scope of the time acceleration to a very small space. Otherwise, the people in the Hichu Luoshu world would exhaust their lifespan and die if they were not careful. Time continued to pass. 1 year after another passed. 10 years after 10 years. Under the powerful spirit Qi of the ninth grade spirit vein, Morongyu's physical body finally recovered to normal. However, Morongyu was still in a deep sleep. However, Hichu, who had been guarding Morongyu, noticed the changes in Morongyu. First, his physical body had broken through to the 7th grade spirit weapon level. Moreover, although Morongyu's aura did not dissipate too much at this time, it was constantly increasing. Silent Soul Stage. Suddenly, one day, Hichu was surprised to find that Morongyu's realm had broken through again. He broke through without taking the initiative to cultivate. In fact, although Morongyu did not cultivate, his strength was constantly circulating when his body was repaired. Moreover, under the acceleration of the world, he had been here for dozens of years. Breaking through a big realm in dozens of years was too slow for him. Of course, he had already used dozens of years to repair his physical body. Will there be another heavenly tribulation? After discovering that Morongyu had broken through, Hichu could not help but look at the sky with some worry, fearing that the heavenly tribulation would strike Morongyu to death. If Morongyu was still conscious, Hichu naturally did not have to worry. It was just an ordinary heavenly tribulation, which was not dangerous to Morongyu. However, Morongyu was in a coma at this time. In a coma, he could not resist the heavenly tribulation at all. If the heavenly tribulation really struck, Morongyu would die without a doubt. However, to Hichu's relief, the heavenly tribulation did not strike. On the contrary, Morongyu's aura was getting stronger and stronger. Chapter 168. I don't know how long it has been, 30 years, 40 years, or 50 years. Finally, on this day, Morongyu slowly opened his eyes and finally woke up. Boy, you finally woke up. Seeing that Morongyu finally woke up, Hichu breathed a sigh of relief and said lightly, "Hichu, thank you." Morongyu glanced at Hichu and thanked him. Although he has been in a coma, he also knows that Hichu has done a lot of things. It's good that you're not dead. Morongyu rolled his eyes. Can't you say something nice? Hichu glanced at Morongyu. Then his figure flashed and left directly. This made Morongyu very helpless. Huh, I actually broke through? After watching Hichu disappear, Morongyu checked his body. With this look, he was suddenly stunned. Peak of Spirit Tranquil Stage. 7th grade Spirit Weapon level body. After sleeping, his body and realm both broke through. What shocked Morongyu the most was the 7th grade spirit weapon level body. It must be known that in the cultivation world, 7th grade spirit weapon is extremely rare, let alone a body that reaches this level. That's quite terrifying. Now, Morongyu's body is equivalent to a 7th grade spirit weapon. With a punch, the 7th grade spirit weapon will immediately shatter. With his current body, as long as he is careful, few people in the cultivation world can hurt him. Moreover, he now has the power of the peak of Spirit Tranquil Stage. Bang! With a thought, a large number of black and incomparably condensed Pan-Chi phantoms suddenly appeared in the void above Morongyu's head. 150, 200, a total of 300 Pan-Chi phantoms, 300 dragon power. Ordinary Spirit Tranquil Stage cultivators can't break through 100 Pan-Chi phantoms, but Morongyu has reached 300. It is more than 3 times the power of these spirit tranquil stage cultivators. It could be said to be extremely shocking. Feeling his powerful strength, Murong was very satisfied. However, he immediately frowned. I remember that after the black lightning struck me, I fainted. At the same time, Murong also felt that his body seemed to be different from before. Not only was he stronger than before, but he had also undergone some sort of transformation. Murong consciousness entered his body. Seeing that his strength was many times stronger than before, Murong was stunned at first. Then, a strange expression appeared on his face. How could this be? Whether it was his body or his meridians, they were countless times stronger than before. However, all of this was within Murong's expectations, so he wasn't surprised. What surprised him was that the power flowing through his meridians, which was the black chaotic power, had undergone some changes at this moment. Lightning flashed. Of course, this lightning was different from ordinary lightning. It was black in color. In his wide meridians, the chaotic energy surged forward like a river. And in the river, there were constantly flashes of lightning. It was exactly the same as the black lightning that struck Murong before. As long as there was power, there would be this black lightning in every corner of his body. Murong let out a groan. He didn't understand how the black lightning entered his body, and it seemed to have merged with his body in strength. This was incredible. Who knew what this black tribulation lightning was? Would it destroy him? Suddenly, Murong raised his head and looked at the sky. The 300 black, coiling dragons were also flickering with lightning. It was even to the extent that the coiling dragon's silhouettes seemed to be condensed from black lightning. Murong's face instantly darkened. He tragically discovered that everything about him had become one with the black tribulation lightning. Boom! Murong pondered for a moment and suddenly punched out. A terrifying black energy containing countless black lightning bolts blasted out. The void shattered and the earth trembled. The frightening power immediately shattered the mountain in front of Murong into pieces. Crackle! The black lightning enveloped an area with a radius of tens of miles. Everything in its path was shattered into pieces. Murong was shocked again. He stretched out his hand and flicked a finger-sized power. It shot out and hit a mountain in the distance. Bang! It was a very small power. It might be able to shatter a boulder, but it definitely couldn't shatter a mountain. However, what shocked Murong was that after this power bombarded the mountain, it immediately exploded. Crackle! Black lightning flashed and instantly enveloped the entire mountain peak that was a few miles in size. Then, under Murong's astonished gaze, the mountain peak was smashed to pieces. What exactly is this black tribulation lightning? Why is it so terrifying? Murong's face was full of shock. He felt that just by relying on this black lightning, he could kill a cultivator in the spirit-severing stage or even the form synthesis stage. If this black lightning was harmless to him, then he could finally be considered a powerhouse. Murong thought to himself anxiously. What else has changed? Murong thought for a moment and continued to check his body. Other than being more powerful than before and combining with the black lightning, there were no other changes. In fact, combining with the black lightning was the biggest change. Moreover, what Murong didn't know was that when he was unconscious, the 9 unique hearts in his dantian were directly shattered. However, at this time, the 9 unique hearts condensed again, flashing with black lightning, showing their strength and inviolability. The Phoenix Spear has finally been promoted to an immortal artifact. Murong was a little happy. Although he now had the immortal sword, the bow of heaven and earth, the yin-yang cauldron, and various other treasures. However, relatively speaking, he still preferred long spears. In other words, he had a special liking for long spears. Since the Phoenix Spear had been promoted to an immortal artifact, it couldn't continue to be promoted for a while. Therefore, Murong carried it on his back again. His body swayed, and he disappeared on the spot. When he reappeared, he was already in the Hichu, Luoshu world, beside Hichu. Why has this place become like this? As soon as Murong Yu appeared, he was shocked to find that he seemed to have entered the heavenly tribulation. Not far in front of Murong Yu, lightning flashed and filled the entire space. Hearing this, Hichu rolled his eyes. Isn't this all thanks to you? These were all transferred here after you went through the heavenly tribulation. Otherwise, how could you be so relaxed? Tribulation lightning. As expected, the pressure of the heavenly tribulation rushed towards him, but it was no threat to Murong Yu at this time. What made Murong Yu frown was, why didn't the tribulation lightning dissipate? Why did it gather here? That's a good question. I want to know the answer too. Hichu looked at Murong Yu and smiled bitterly. Even though it had been decades since the tribulation lightning was transferred here, not only did the tribulation lightning not decrease, it seemed to be increasing in number. Even someone as knowledgeable as Hichu couldn't understand why this was happening. You're saying that the tribulation lightning is increasing in number? Murong Yu's face suddenly revealed a smile. Then, his body swayed, and he entered the tribulation lightning. Crackle, crackle. It was as if he entered an ocean of lightning. The moment he entered, countless bolts of tribulation lightning crazily rushed towards Murong Yu. With Murong Yu's 7th realm spiritual artifact physique and the constant lightning strikes, he was already immune to these heavenly tribulations. Therefore, he didn't defend himself. However, he had discovered something after all this time. When these bolts of lightning rushed over, Murong Yu was surprised to find that not only did he not resist these bolts of lightning, but he also felt like a fish in water. He felt that these bolts of lightning were very harmonious with him, as if they were his children. The reason why they flocked over was not to destroy him, but to get closer to him. When this thought appeared in his mind, Murong Yu suddenly felt that it was a little strange. However, this thought became stronger and clearer. Could it be because of the black tribulation lightning? Murong Yu slowly walked in the tribulation lightning. Outside the tribulation lightning, he too stared in shock at Murong Yu, who was surrounded by countless bolts of tribulation lightning. It was as if he was condensed from tribulation lightning. Not only did this fellow not show any signs of fear or discomfort, on the contrary, he had a comfortable look on his face. What's going on? Hichu was confused, and so was Murong Yu. However, this was definitely a good thing for Murong Yu. Because he wasn't afraid of the tribulation lightning, he naturally wouldn't be afraid of the tribulation lightning in the future. Moreover, Murong Yu wouldn't be afraid of triggering the tribulation lightning to kill the cultivators a few more times. After seriously sensing that the tribulation lightning really wouldn't hurt him, Murong Yu left the tribulation lightning and appeared beside Hichu. Your glabella. Hichu, who had been paying attention to Murong Yu, suddenly looked at Murong Yu in surprise. At this moment, there was a black tribulation lightning mark between Murong Yu's eyebrows. Murong Yu was a little depressed. Ever since I was hit by the black tribulation lightning, I've become like this. However, it doesn't seem to be good for me. Although Murong Yu was a little helpless, there was nothing to worry about. Since the tribulation lightning here won't dissipate, Hichu, I have an idea. Murong Yu looked at Hichu and told him his idea. In the cultivation world, apart from the 49 heavenly tribulations in the late stage of the tribulation transcendent stage, ordinary cultivators couldn't trigger heavenly tribulations at all. However, Murong Yu, who was often struck by lightning, knew the benefits of being struck by lightning. Using the power of the tribulation lightning to temper the body, it would definitely improve the strength and level of the body quickly. In the past, ordinary cultivators couldn't trigger tribulation lightning. However, the tribulation lightning here hadn't dissipated, so it could be used to temper the body and improve the level of the body. Of course, this obviously wasn't aimed at Murong Yu, but Murong Yu stretched out a big hand and grabbed at Zhang Ao, who was on the other side of the Hichu Luoshu world. Although this guy was already at the peak of the body integration stage, his body was really... Chapter 169. Zhang Ao was cultivating in seclusion in the Hichu Luoshu world. On this day, he suddenly raised his head to look at the void as if he had sensed something. At this moment, the void shattered, and a monstrous hand broke through the sky and directly reached out from the nine heavens, grabbing at him fiercely. Zhang Ao was taken aback. His figure flashed as he tried to escape. However, the speed of the hand was extremely fast. Just as Zhang Ao was about to escape, the hand had already reached out and directly grabbed Zhang Ao. Zhang Ao was shocked and was about to resist when the scene in front of him changed. The next moment, he appeared in a strange space. A leader? When Zhang Ao sensed that the hand that was grabbing her had suddenly disappeared, she saw Murong Yu and he too in a state of confusion. With a thought, Zhang Ao had already thought that the hand just now should be related to Murong Yu. In fact, that hand was Murong Yu's. Although there was a big gap between his realm and Zhang Ao's, this was the Hichu Luoshu world. Here, Murong Yu was the master. Not to mention that Zhang Ao was only at the combination stage. Even the existence of the transformation stage and the half-immortal stage couldn't resist at all. Looking at Murong Yu, Zhang Ao's face showed a trace of surprise. It wasn't because Murong Yu's strength had become stronger and his realm had increased. It was because he felt a trace of dangerous aura from Murong Yu. That kind of aura was not obvious, but made Zhang Ao feel shocked. A kind of invisible pressure was emitted, shaking his soul. Maybe I'm still not a match for the leader. This thought suddenly flashed through Zhang Ao's mind. He wasn't referring to Murong Yu relying on treasures such as the bow of heaven and earth, but Murong Yu's own strength. Do you see those tribulation thunder? Murong Yu pointed at the tribulation thunder in front of him and said to Zhang Ao. Only then did Zhang Ao react and look into the distance. The entire space was full of endless thunder and lightning. A mighty pressure that was as vast as the ocean spread out, intimidating the myriad of worlds. Zhang Ao looked at Murong Yu with some hesitation. Vaguely, he felt that the pressure coming from Murong Yu's body was similar to the pressure coming from before. In fact, it was 1,000,000 times more terrifying than the tribulation lightning. These are tribulation thunders. Use the power of tribulation thunders to refine your body and increase your physical strength quickly. Zhang Ao suddenly realized. After pondering for a while, he slowly walked toward the tribulation thunder. Rejuvenation pill, breakthrough pill, and the like can increase one's strength, but they have no effect on tempering one's physical body. This place will be left for them to temper their bodies in the future. Murong Yu turned to Hichu and said with a smile when he saw that Zhang Ao had already entered the tribulation thunder to temper his body. Hichu nodded with a smile on his face. Using the tribulation thunder to temper his body? This was indeed a very good method. How could there be so much tribulation lightning to temper one's body? The tribulation thunder here did not dissipate, so it was just right for Murong Yu's subordinates to temper their bodies in the future. You've been in a coma for 50 years. Half a year has passed in the outside world. What are your plans now? Since I already have a large number of breakthrough pills, it's time to create my own force. Murong Yu smiled and then disappeared from the Hichu Luoshu world. After appearing outside, Murong Yu found himself in the extreme celestial realm, near the rank 9 spiritual vein. After looking at the rank 9 spiritual vein reluctantly, Murong Yu left the underground karst cave and appeared on the surface of the extreme celestial realm. Boom! After releasing the suppression on his own realm, a black tribulation cloud instantly condensed above Murong Yu's head. Lightning flashed, and the tribulation thunder was about to strike. Is he going to undergo tribulation again? A smile appeared on Murong Yu's face as he looked at the tribulation lightning above his head. There wasn't the slightest trace of nervousness on his face. However, when he thought of the black tribulation thunder, Murong Yu's face became gloomy. I hope there won't be any more black tribulation thunder. Murong Yu rose into the air and rushed toward the tribulation cloud. Rumble! The tribulation thunder in the sky bombarded Murong Yu. At this time, a strange feeling appeared in Murong Yu's heart. Just like the tribulation thunder in Hichu Luoshu, When the tribulation thunder struck, Morongyu did not feel the destructive power from them. Instead, he felt a sense of joy. Without dodging, Morongyu stood in the void and was instantly surrounded by the lightning. There was no harm. Morongyu even saw the lightning that surrounded him naturally flow into his body and begin to temper his body. Strange. Could it be because of the black tribulation thunder? Morongyu thought in his heart. However, the tribulation thunder no longer destroyed him, but took the initiative to temper his body. This was a good thing for him. The 9-layered tribulation thunder, especially when the tribulation thunder did not continue to destroy Morongyu, was not dangerous to Morongyu. During this process, he even transferred a large amount of tribulation thunder into the Hichu Luoshu world, increasing the number of tribulation thunder in the Hichu Luoshu world. Not long after, the 9-layered tribulation thunder dissipated. The black tribulation thunder did not continue to appear, and his body did not continue to break through. His body had already reached the level of a 7th-grade spiritual weapon. It was impossible to break through in a short period of time. After the tribulation, Morongyu once again entered the Hichu Luoshu world and then directly teleported to the hidden fairy valley's Qingxian Peak through the transmission array. With his swoosh, he appeared beside Zhao Jiqing, giving Zhao Jiqing a shock. After discovering that it was Morongyu, Zhao Jiqing was instantly overjoyed. After killing so many people that day, Morongyu disappeared without a trace. Although she had Morongyu's soul crystal and knew that he was fine, Zhao Jiqing was still worried before seeing him. At this moment, she was finally relieved. What's the reaction of a major sex now? Morongyu asked after recounting his feelings of parting. The major sex are furious. Tens of thousands of cultivators were killed that day, especially those in the tribulation stage and transformation stage. This made the major sex extremely furious. However, there was nothing they could do because many people in the extreme sky city saw with their own eyes that the heavenly tribulation had reached 8 layers. In other words, the culprit who caused the heavenly tribulation was already dead. Since the culprit was dead, there was nothing the major sex could do, even if they were furious. Immediately, the major sex sent people to the exit of the extreme sky realm to search, but there was nothing. Moreover, even Morongyu had disappeared without a trace. This made the major sex wonder if Morongyu had died under the heavenly tribulation. After understanding this matter, Morongyu only smiled. No matter how the major sex reacted, so what if they knew that he was the culprit behind the scenes? With Morongyu's current strength, he was not even afraid of the top 10 sections. By the way, how's Qingxian Peak? I see that there are many more people here. Morongyu smiled and asked. Qingxian Peak has increased to 500 people. It turned out that after returning to Qingxian Peak from the extreme sky city, Zhao Jiqing used the breakthrough pill and recovery pill that Morongyu gave her to start increasing the cultivation of many disciples. In just a short month, all the disciples of Qingxian Peak had increased by at least 2 major realms. This was not in a year, but in a month. To increase by 2 major realms in a month, even if it was only the foundation establishment stage, it was impossible for the revolving reflection stage. This kind of speed was absolutely shocking. Therefore, when this news spread, it caused a stir in the hidden fairy valley. Qingxian Peak then started recruiting. This time, it was even crazier than before. After hearing that Qingxian Peak was recruiting disciples, a large number of disciples from the hidden fairy valley flocked to join the hidden fairy valley. However, in the end, the hidden fairy valley only recruited about 400 people, and all of them were female disciples. After half a year of development, although Qingxian Peak did not have any top experts, it already had a large number of solitary spirit stage and out-of-body stage experts. Of course, the rapid development of Qingxian Peak also alarmed the higher-ups of the hidden fairy valley. These higher-ups had invited Zhao Jiqing to talk more than once, and their purpose was none other than the breakthrough pill in Zhao Jiqing's hands. However, every time, they were rejected by Zhao Jiqing. Because these breakthrough pills were obtained in the extreme heavenly realm, the quantity was extremely limited, and it was impossible to give it to the entire Hidden Fairy Valley. However, the Hidden Fairy Valley was still the Hidden Fairy Valley. Although it was one of the top 10 sects like Zhushenzong, it was still much more noble than Zhushenzong. Although Zhao Jiqing had rejected it, the Hidden Fairy Valley did not forcefully snatch Zhao Jiqing's breakthrough pill. On the contrary, the sect supported it even more. The difference between them and Zhushenzong could be seen from this. Letting you join the Hidden Fairy Valley was indeed a wise decision. Moronyu nodded and smiled. If the Hidden Fairy Valley really did what Zhushenzong did to him, Moronyu would immediately take away the entire Qing Xian Peak. All right, how are Jianglu and Changla? Moronyu suddenly asked. Ever since those two clowns joined the Qing Xian Peak, they had become coolies. Who asked them to be the only two male disciples recruited by the Qing Xian Peak? Those two are not bad. They have already reached the out-of-body stage. Moronyu pondered for a moment, then said, although the Hidden Fairy Valley strongly supports you, it doesn't mean that the other disciples won't be jealous. However, the Qing Xian Peak doesn't have any top experts. I want to promote a few experts at the peak of the body integration stage this time. Although the Hidden Fairy Valley was not bad, there would always be some scum in every sect. Perhaps at this moment, someone was thinking about how to get the breakthrough pill in Zhao Jiqing's hands. How about this? Let's promote the cultivation of Huawei, the 13, and Changlu. After all, they have been with me for the longest time. Changli's character is also not bad. Zhao Jiqing pondered for a moment, then said. Moronyu nodded. Of course, but we have to ask for their opinions. Obviously, Moronyu's worries were unnecessary. When they heard that they could quickly improve their strength, none of the 15 people hesitated. On the contrary, they were very excited. As a cultivator, who didn't want to have powerful strength? When they heard that you could promote their cultivation to the peak of the body integration stage, they were all pleasantly surprised. This kind of promotion speed was no different from reaching the heavens in a single bound. Moreover, eating the breakthrough pill to increase one's strength would not have any negative side effects. At most, their foundation would not be solid enough. However, as long as they continued to cultivate, they would naturally be able to consolidate their cultivation. None of the 15 people hesitated and immediately agreed. Chapter 170. Qingshin Peak in a Valley. Moronyu had set up several arrays around the area to prevent anyone from intruding and affecting everyone's breakthrough. Changlu, Jianglu, Huawei, and the rest of the 15 people were sitting cross-legged on the ground at a distance from each other. Beside each of them, there was a small mountain of rejuvenation pills and enough breakthrough pills. Without any hesitation, everyone began to swallow the energy breakthrough pills. Under the powerful effect of the energy breakthrough pills and the support of a large number of energy recovery pills, everyone began to break through. Out-of-body stage, function stage, form synthesis stage, and the peak of the form synthesis stage. After about half a month, all 15 people broke through to the peak of the form synthesis stage without any accidents. Transformation stage, tribulation stage, and then form synthesis stage. Transformation stage cultivators were the most powerful people in the cultivation world. Of course, above the transformation stage, there were half-immortals, one-step immortals, and so on. However, there are not many cultivators in this stage in the cultivation world. As for the tribulation stage, there are not many people in this stage. Most of them were elders of the major sections. The peak of the form synthesis stage was already a true disciple of a major sect. Even in the top 10 sects like the Hidden Fairy Valley, they were definitely at the level of a true disciple. In other words, after Huawei and the rest broke through to the peak of the form synthesis stage, they were already qualified to become true disciples of the Hidden Fairy Valley. As long as the Hidden Fairy Valley recognized their identity, they would be true disciples. In these sects, besides the elders, chief disciples, and holy sons and holy daughters, The true disciples had the highest status. The status of a true disciple also depended on the individual's strength. Of course, it did not mean that the peak of the form synthesis stage was the strongest among the true disciples. For a large sect like the Hidden Immortal Valley, there are still many true disciples who were at the crossing calamity stage. However, in any case, Qing Xian Peak finally had an expert in charge, although he was only at the peak of the form synthesis stage. Morong, thank you. When they felt that they had reached the peak of the form synthesis stage, everyone stopped cultivating and came over to thank Morongyu. They were truly grateful to Morongyu. If it weren't for Morongyu's generosity, they wouldn't have been able to reach the peak of the form synthesis stage so easily. In fact, most of the people present didn't have very good aptitudes. Many of them didn't even think that they could reach the form synthesis stage in their lifetime. But now, in less than half a month, they had already reached a realm that they had never imagined before. Other than gratitude, there was still gratitude. You don't have to thank me. I want to increase your strength, but I also have a request for you. Morongyu smiled faintly and glanced at everyone. As long as you have any orders, we will definitely do it. Everyone quickly replied. You are the earliest batch of disciples of the Green Xian Peak, and now your strength is the highest. I only have one request for you to increase your strength, and that is to protect Green Xian Peak. Of course, Qing Xian Peak is our home. We will do our best to protect Qing Xian Peak. Everyone said resolutely. Morongyu just nodded and didn't say anything more. In fact, before increasing their cultivation, Morongyu and Zhao Jiqing had already observed them. If they weren't reliable, Morongyu wouldn't have helped them to increase their cultivation. All right, you guys go and consolidate your cultivation first. As he spoke, Morongyu had already soared into the sky and flew into the distance. As for the energy recovery pills, Morongyu didn't take them back. He treated them as gifts. In reality, Morongyu didn't care about the hundreds of millions of yuan rejuvenation pills at the moment. It was just the tip of the iceberg. Moreover, the origin recovery pill was originally meant to be used to increase their strength. Chong Lu and the others' strength had increased to the peak of the form synthesis stage, which naturally shocked Green Xian Peak and even the entire Hidden Fairy Valley. Most of the disciples were very envious of their cultivation. Even the elders of the Hidden Fairy Valley were tempted. After all, these people had their own forces, and there were many disciples in their forces who were of low cultivation. Even if they didn't consider their own forces, they still considered the entire Hidden Fairy Valley. During this process, Zhao Jiqing was invited to talk again. Other aspects were fine, but when it came to the cultivation breakthrough pills, Zhao Jiqing still said that the cultivation breakthrough pills were very limited. In fact, the cultivation breakthrough pills were really limited. Moreover, Morongyu didn't want others to know that he could mass-produce pills. Otherwise, if others knew about the Yin-Yang Cauldron, even the Hidden Fairy Valley would be tempted. Moreover, although the Hidden Fairy Valley had a good reputation, it had nothing to do with Morongyu. Even if he had an endless supply of energy breakthrough pills, he couldn't provide them to the Hidden Fairy Valley. Morongyu wasn't stingy with the Green Xian Peak. However, he didn't increase everyone's strength without limit. After all, Zhao Jiqing's strength was still very weak. If the entire Green Xian Peak's strength increased, it might have some impact on her. It's time to develop my own forces. On this day, Morongyu sighed. After leaving a large amount of energy recovery pills and cultivation breakthrough pills to Zhao Jiqing, he left the Hidden Fairy Valley. He was now eager to develop his own forces. At this time, Morongyu only had Zhang Ao as his subordinate. How would he endure this? However, how to develop his own forces was another problem. Morongyu thought for a long time, but he still didn't know where to find people. He wasn't like an ordinary sect, where countless people would come to join just by shouting. If Morongyu shouted that he was recruiting people, and with a large amount of energy recovery pills and cultivation breakthrough pills, there would be a large number of people coming to join him. However, Morongyu didn't want others to know that he was developing his forces for the time being. At the very least, He didn't want others to know before his forces were strong enough. After thinking about it for a long time, Murong Yu still didn't know how to recruit people. In the end, he entered the Hichu Luoshu world. After sensing Yu Mengqing, he appeared beside her in the next instant. Who is it? Just as Murong Yu revealed himself, he heard a voice brimming with killing intent. At the same time, a dangerous aura assaulted his senses. Girl, it's me. Looking closely, Murong Yu saw that Yu Mengqing was attacking him with a murderous look on her face. Looking at her posture, it seemed like she wanted to take his life. Murong Yu didn't want to get into a big fight with this girl, so he hurriedly shouted, "Big gangster, it's you." After hearing Murong Yu's words, Yu Mengqing, who was full of murderous look, also saw Murong Yu clearly. At the same time, her attack disappeared without a trace. Girl, why are you so fierce for no reason? Be careful that you won't be able to get married in the future. Murong Yu rolled his eyes and said gloomily, being attacked, as soon as he appeared, if it was anyone else, they would be very gloomy. Big gangster, don't you know where you are? Hearing this, Yu Mengqing, who had already stopped, clenched her teeth and moved her body. She stretched out her big hand and attacked Murong Yu fiercely. Whoosh! Murong Yu shouted strangely and used the army formula. His body shook and disappeared on the spot, appearing on the other side of the house. At this time, he glanced around and realized that he seemed to have come at the wrong time. Obviously, this was a bedroom. The furnishings in the room were very exquisite and even exuded a faint fragrance. Obviously, this was Yu Mengqing's bedroom. Looking at the sky outside, it was already dark. At this time, Murong Yu finally knew why Yu Mengqing, this girl, was so murderous. Not only did he suddenly appear, but he also came to her bedroom, suddenly appearing in a girl's boudoir in the middle of the night. Murong Yu's face was a little red. Wasn't this confirming the big gangster that Yu Mengqing often called him? Murong Yu smiled embarrassedly and said, "Girl, don't be angry first. I really didn't do it on purpose." However, Yu Mengqing still looked at Murong Yu with vigilance. "Big gangster, why did you suddenly appear here?" Murong Yu suddenly appeared in her boudoir, which made Yu Mengqing a little angry. What made her even more angry was that she didn't know how Murong Yu appeared. If this guy suddenly broke in her boudoir while she was sleeping. Thinking of this situation, Yu Mengqing's murderous aura became even more fierce. Seeing this, Murong Yu was anxious. He knew that if he didn't give Yu Mengqing a satisfactory answer, this girl would definitely fall out with him. However, after thinking about it, Murong Yu didn't know how to explain. Seeing Murong Yu's wretched look, Yu Mengqing became even angrier. This is so difficult to solve. Damn it, girl, why did you enter the bedroom so early? Murong Yu cursed in his heart. He didn't even look at the time now. Gritting his teeth, Murong Yu finally made a decision. His figure flashed and appeared beside Yu Mengqing. Then, before Yu Mengqing could react, he had already grabbed her hand. Yu Mengqing was suddenly shocked. She thought that Murong Yu's beastly nature was unleashed and he was going to do something to her. Also, in her anger, she instantly raised her strength to the limit and punched at Murong Yu in front of her. Chapter 171. Swish. With a punch, it was earth-shattering. The current Yu Mengqing was at the spirit-severing stage and was very powerful. Normally, Murong Yu wouldn't be able to dodge at such a close distance. However, before the fist hit Murong Yu, Yu Mengqing suddenly felt the scene in front of her change. Then, she found that he had left her boudoir and appeared in an unfamiliar space. Suddenly encountering an unforeseen event, Yu Mengqing's eyes widened, and her fist stopped halfway. Where is this place? Looking around, Yu Mengqing looked at Murong Yu with a puzzled face. Murong Yu let go of Yu Mengqing's hand and said with a smile on his face, "This is why I suddenly appeared in your room." Seeing that Yu Mengqing was still puzzled, Murong Yu grabbed Yu Mengqing's hand again and said, "Come with me. I'll take you to a place." Without waiting for Yu Mengqing to refuse, the two figures flashed and already disappeared on the spot. When they reappeared, Yu Mengqing suddenly felt a very rich spirit qi rushing towards her. Looking around, Yu Mengqing suddenly had a familiar feeling. In the next moment, she rose into the air. This is a ninth-grade spirit vein. We're in the extreme heaven realm. Not long after, Yu Mengqing flew back and looked at Murongyu with a shocked face. Murongyu nodded with a smile. How did you do it? Isn't the extreme heaven realm closed? How can we come in? Yu Mengqing grabbed Murongyu's arm with a shocked face and asked anxiously. For a long time, the extreme heaven realm could only be opened at a specific time, and it also limited cultivators of a certain level to enter. Now, the extreme heaven realm had been closed for half a year, and Murongyu actually brought her into the extreme heaven realm. Moreover, she was a spirit-severing expert, and they actually ignored the rules of the extreme heaven realm and entered here. How could this not surprise you, Mengqing? The world is so big, there's no place that I can't go. Murongyu replied with a smile. In fact, there weren't many places that Murongyu could go right now. Tell me, how did you get in here? After Yu Mengqing recovered from her shock, she glared at Murongyu and threatened. This is my secret, so I can't tell you for now. However, you just need to know that I can enter the extreme celestial realm at any time. Murongyu replied. Although he brought Yu Mengqing here, he did not intend to tell her the secret of Hichu Luo Shu. Moreover, there was a reason why Murongyu had brought Yu Mengqing here. Shocking. Shocking. Other than shock, there was still more shock. Murongyu had actually disregarded all the rules and entered this place at any time. This was the extreme celestial realm, and there were countless heavenly treasures here. At this moment, the way Yu Mengqing looked at Murongyu had changed. It was as if she was looking at a moving treasury. Murongyu did not care about Yu Mengqing's reaction. He grabbed her hand again and appeared in her room in the mystic moon sect in a flash. Looking at Yu Mengqing, who was still in shock, Murongyu only smiled. Then, he pushed open the door and walked out. Murongyu, why are you here? Just as Murongyu stepped out of the room, a sharp cry came from in front of him. Murongyu's brows furrowed as he looked over, only to see a woman looking at him in shock. And that person was also someone he knew. Yang Man and Yu Mengqing had a good relationship. Today, she was looking for Yu Mengqing. However, before she could reach Yu Mengqing's room, she saw the door open. In the next moment, a man walked out of Yu Mengqing's room with a lewd smile on his face. Yang Man was immediately shocked. She knew Yu Mengqing's character. Not to mention men, even ordinary disciples were not allowed to enter her room. And at this moment, a man actually walked out of her room, and he even smiled so lewdly. Could it be that little junior sister is? A strange thought arose in Yang Man's heart. Could it be that this man is little junior sister's man? Yang Man thought in her heart, but why did she feel that the figure was familiar? Looking over, Yang Man finally could not help but cry out in surprise. That person was Murongyu. Seeing that it was Murongyu, Yang Man could not help but heave a sigh of relief. She did not know much about other men. In that case, she would not be at ease if Yu Mengqing followed him. After all, they all doted on this little junior sister. However, if this man was Murongyu, although Murongyu was ruthless, he was generous and valued friendship. Putting aside the fact that he was ruthless, he was definitely a good man. Of course, he was only ruthless towards his enemies. In the cultivation world, only this kind of person could live a good life. Murongyu, when did you and little junior sister get together? After Yang Man screamed, she sneaked to Murongyu's side like a thief and said. Murongyu staggered and almost fell to the ground. This young man looks more refined, but she has such a vulgar side to her words. She actually used the word get together. Murongyu was shocked by Yang Man. What made him even more shocked was Yang Man's words. When did I get together with Yu Mengqing? Murongyu looked at Yang Man in shock. If you didn't do that, why did you walk out of little junior sister's room in the middle of the night and smile so contentedly? Yang Man looked at Murongyu suspiciously. Senior sister, what nonsense are you talking about? At this moment, Yu Mengqing rushed out of the room like a gust of wind and screamed. Little junior sister, although I interrupted your good deed, you don't have to be so hysterical, right? No, I have to tell Master about this and make her happy. As she spoke, young man was about to turn and leave, as if she was going to tell you, Vex. Senior sister, don't talk nonsense. I have nothing to do with this big hooligan. Yu Mengqing pulled young man and said angrily. There was nothing between her and Murong Yu. But if young man was allowed to do as she pleased, this matter would spread throughout the entire Xianyue sect before tomorrow. It would be fine if this was the truth, but the key was that this was just a lie. There's really nothing between you two? Young man looked at Murong Yu and Yu Mengqing suspiciously. Murong Yu rolled his eyes and nodded. Yu Mengqing nodded so hard that it seemed like her head was going to break. It was as if the more she nodded, the more it proved that there was nothing between the two of them. What a pity. Young man looked at Murong Yu with an incomparably regretful and disappointed gaze. It was as if she was very disappointed that the two of them were fine. Young man, don't talk nonsense. There's really nothing between us. Murong Yu said with a serious face. After all, Yu Mengqing was a virgin. This kind of thing had to be clarified, otherwise it would affect her reputation. However, when she heard Murong Yu's words, a hint of disappointment flashed across the depths of Yu Mengqing's eyes. However, she quickly covered it up. Senior sister, we're really fine. This guy just came to find me for something. At this point, Yu Mengqing even glared at Murong Yu. Yes, I came here for something. I just happened to bump into her. Murong Yu just remembered that he really had something to do here. What is it? Murong Yu rolled his eyes and said, borrow someone. Borrow someone? Yu Mengqing and young man looked at Murong Yu in confusion. Borrow what person? Can you borrow someone? Murong Yu smiled mysteriously and said, of course, but you can't decide on this matter. I want to see your mother tomorrow. I wonder if you can arrange it for me? The two women were very curious, but no matter how they asked, Murong Yu didn't say anything. In the end, Yu Mengqing agreed. Of course, Murong Yu stayed in the guest room of the Xianyue sect for the night. The next day, Yu Mengqing and young man came to find Murong Yu. Then, they went to the main hall of the Xianyue sect together. Yu Luxiu was waiting for Murong Yu in the main hall. Murong Yu, you said you want to borrow people from my Xianyue sect? Yu Luxiu also looked at Murong Yu in confusion. Yes, I came here to borrow a few people. I hope that Sect Master will agree. Murong Yu was very polite. Looking at the other party's puzzled look, Murong Yu continued. You also know that I'm just a loner. I don't belong to any sect and have been bullied in the cultivation world. However, I have a large number of breakthrough pills in my hands now. Therefore, I want to establish my own force. However, other than Zhang Ao, I don't have a second person, and I'm also preparing to recruit people recently. However, everything is difficult at the beginning, so I want to borrow a few people from Sect Master to temporarily make up for it. Murong Yu said with a smile. In fact, was it really that simple for Murong Yu to borrow people? This guy had already set his sights on the disciples of the Xianyue sect. Otherwise, he wouldn't have raised Zhang Ao's realm in front of so many disciples of the Xianyue sect in the extreme heaven realm. If Yu Luxiu really lent people to Murong Yu, she would probably not be able to return them. Of course, this was Murong Yu's original intention. Yu Luxiu frowned slightly. Compared to the hundreds of thousands of disciples of the Xianyue sect, it was not a problem to lend a few people to Murong Yu. However, it was basically impossible to lend them to Murong Yu just like that. I heard that you have a lot of breakthrough pills. I don't know if it's true at this time. Yu Luxiu pondered for a moment and continued. I also have a little bit of breakthrough pills. I'm using them to cultivate my own force. However, if Sect Master can lend me some people, I'll repay you with breakthrough pills, Murong Yu said. In fact, he felt a little pain in his heart. For a big sect like the Xianyue sect, the breakthrough pills were more important than Murong Yu. Imagine, if the Xianyue sect had a large number of breakthrough pills, then they would have a large number of disciples in the form synthesis stage. Although they were only at the form synthesis stage. If there were hundreds of thousands of disciples in the form synthesis stage, then there would be disciples with good aptitude among them. Even if they could not break through in a short period of time, over time, some of them would gradually break through to the tribulation stage. Although the probability of a cultivator in the tribulation stage to the transformation stage was very small, it could not withstand a large number of people. Hundreds of thousands of cultivators in the tribulation stage. Even if only 1/10 or even 1/100th of them successfully passed the tribulation and entered the transformation stage, then the Xinhua sect would have at least thousands of cultivators in the transformation stage. Thousands of cultivators in the transformation stage. What kind of concept was this? Even if the top 10 sects added up the number of cultivators in the transformation stage, it would not be 1/10 of this number, right? By then, it would become the number 1 sect in the cultivation world. Even if Lucio did not have the ambition to dominate the cultivation world, as a sect master who did not want to strengthen their own sect. Therefore, after hearing Moronyu's words, Lucio was moved. Moreover, picking up Moronyu and the others was not the same thing at all. Chapter 172. How many people do you need? Ulvexiu asked after pondering for a while. There's a chance. Moronyu inwardly shouted. He felt that there was a chance. As for how many people he could borrow, it would depend on how he negotiated with the sect leader. Not many. 40 to 50 people will do, Moronyu said lightly. 40 to 50 people? Not many? Yu Mengqing raised her eyebrows and glared at Moronyu. Of course, I'll return what I borrow. I'll also give you 100 realm-breaking pills as a reward, Moronyu continued. Returning what he borrowed sounded nice, but Moronyu had no intention of returning it at all. 50 people for 100 realm-breaking pills. You're too stingy. Ulvexiu frowned slightly, but Yu Mengqing said directly without hesitation. Eldest young miss, the breakthrough pill is an extinct pill. I don't have many of them. If I give you all the realm-breaking pills, what will I do? How am I supposed to establish my own faction? Moronyu rolled his eyes and said with a pained expression. Ulvexiu still didn't say anything. Moronyu had no choice but to increase the bargaining chip. 500. 500 at most. I can't take out any more. Ulvexiu just looked at Moronyu indifferently and didn't say anything. 500 realm-breaking pills were useless for the entire Mystic Moon sect. How many disciples could it cultivate? 1,000. Moronyu gritted his teeth. If 1,000 realm break pills were used to nurture low-level cultivators, they would only be able to nurture a few dozen cultivators to the body integration stage. However, Ulvexiu still didn't say anything. Seeing this, Moronyu was annoyed. Vampires, vampires. Moronyu cursed in his heart. Then, he gritted his teeth and said, 5,000 people. I'll choose them myself. If you don't agree, then forget it. Moronyu was a little angry. Although he could refine realm-breaking pills almost endlessly, each of those realm-breaking pills was worth more than 100 million. 5,000 realm-breaking pills were worth 700 billion realm-breaking pills. 700 billion was not a small number. Using these rejuvenation pills to supply a large sect like the Mystic Moon sect could last for countless years. Deal. Ulvexiu finally opened her mouth, revealing a smile on her face. Vampire. Moronyu inwardly gnashed his teeth. Are you going to choose someone yourself? Ulvexiu laughed. However, in Moronyu's eyes, Ulvexiu's smile was as cunning as a fox's. I want all the people who came out of the extreme heavenly realm that day, not one less. Moronyu gritted his teeth and said, originally, he didn't want Young Man, Pei-Pei-Yu, and Simaru-Yu, these 3 people, but he actually paid 5,000 realm-breaking pills. If he didn't get a few experts to come over, he would really be letting himself down. All of them? Are you sure? Ulvexiu's face showed a strange look. Beside him, Yu Mengqing and Yang Man were also looking at Moronyu with sparkling eyes. Yes. Moronyu said affirmatively. Moronyu, aren't you going too far? Don't tell me you even dare to ask for a young sect master? Yang Man looked at Moronyu with a smile. Moronyu was startled. Only then did he remember that Yu Mengqing also entered the extreme heavenly realm that day. This girl was Ulvexiu's precious child, the young sect master of the Mystic Moon sect. If he kidnapped her, of course, this was impossible. Ulvexiu was the first to disagree. Immediately, Murongyu smiled and said, "Except for you, Mengxing, I want everyone else." Young man, Pei Yu, and Simaruyu were all Ulvexiu's disciples. They were all spirit-severing experts. Their aptitude should be good. Since he was cheated of 5,000 realm-breaking pills, then he would kidnap all three of them, borrowing without returning. I can lend them to you, but when do you plan to return them? After all, they are disciples of the Mystic Moon sect. Ulvexiu was a sect master after all. How could she be so easily fooled? Borrowing without returning. As long as my force is on the right track, I will naturally send them back. Murongyu said with a smile. On the right track? What was on the right track? Wasn't it just a matter of Murongyu's words? As long as Murongyu said that the force was not on the right track, these people would not return. Ulvexiu frowned. Of course she knew what Murongyu meant. However, since he took out the realm-breaking pills worth 700 to 800 billion recovery pills, if she was too stingy, it would seem that she was not magnanimous. Okay, it's settled then. Mengxing, young man, take Murongyu down to deal with this matter. Ulvexiu immediately decided on this matter. Great. Murongyu smiled. Then he took out a storage bag from his waist and threw it to Ulvexiu. There are 5,000 realm-breaking pills inside. Does Sectmaster want to count? Ulvexiu took the storage bag and put it into her storage space without looking at it. Then she waved her hand and said, "No need. You can go do your thing." With the help of you Mengxing and Yang Man, the more than 40 people who came out of the extreme heaven realm that day were gathered in less than half a day. Then, after Yang Man explained the matter, although everyone was a little surprised, no one was disgusted. The first reason was because of Murongyu. After spending so much time together, they all knew that Murongyu was a rich man. He had an endless supply of yuan recovery pills, and he was also very generous. If they worked with him, he would definitely not be stingy. Moreover, they also believed that Murongyu was a person and did not dislike him. If they worked with him, they could quickly improve their strength. Who would not be willing? Not long after, when these people were ready, Murongyu led this group of women and left the Xinhua sect. These people did not know that after they left the Xinhua sect with Murongyu, they were no longer disciples of the Xinhua sect. It was not the Xinhua sect who deprived them of their identity, but Murongyu. Flying with the women and listening to their chatter and laughter, Murongyu felt high-spirited. Moreover, at this moment, he suddenly had an idea. Is the Xinhua sect the only female sect in the cultivation world? Why don't I create a female force? In some aspects, women were indeed inferior to men. However, if all his subordinates were a group of women, it would be easier to control them. Moreover, women were not as easy to cause trouble as men. In some aspects, they were even better than men. All right, everyone stop first. After leaving the Xinhua sect and reaching a place where there were no people, Murongyu stopped. Next, I will send everyone to a safe place. There, I will increase everyone's strength. Now all of you hold hands. Although the women felt strange, they still stood together hand in hand. When they were ready, Murongyu also held Young Man's hand. With his swoosh, they disappeared on the spot and appeared in front of Hichu Luo Shu. This is an independent space. Only I can enter and leave. Here, you can move freely. However, if you want to leave, you must inform me or Zhang Ao directly. As he spoke, Murongyu stretched out his hand and grabbed Zhang Ao, who was tempering his body in the tribulation lightning. At the same time, the shadow beside Murongyu distorted slightly and Hichu appeared in front of everyone. From now on, you will all be my subordinates and a part of my force. After you become my subordinates, you will have to listen to my orders. My words are orders and cannot be disobeyed. Do you have any objections? If you're not willing, I will send you out of here. No objections, everyone said loudly. Very good. My strength is called chaos. It is just an existence similar to an organization. It is different from ordinary sections. From now on, I will be the leader. and he'll be the deputy leader. His name is Hichu. Greetings, leader, deputy leader. Everyone quickly bowed and quickly got into the mood. In chaos, everyone is brothers and sisters. Everyone is a family and must take care of each other in the future. Furthermore, during this process, I will gradually raise your realms. As long as everyone is a part of chaos, I will provide you with endless pills. And as he spoke, Murongyu waved his hand. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. More than 40 sword lights flew over from afar, and each of them emitted a powerful aura. Spiritual weapons. They are all spiritual weapons. You exclaimed. That's right, these are all spiritual weapons. And this is just a greeting gift from me to you. Each of you can choose one. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.